across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good evening, this is Talk. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company. I beat myself up over Mandelson. That is what the Prime Minister has said in regard to the appointment of Peter Mandelson and everything that has gone wrong since. And there's so much more detail coming out all the time about that and about Morgan McSweeney's mobile phone, where it is, how it was lost, what he said to the police and what he didn't. This has gone into day 2 of this scandal. We'll also be talking about another much bigger scandal, the Huw Edwards scandal. I've now finally watched the drama, maybe you have too, and I think that there's a lot to be said about it. There's the front page of The Sun today, many people asking, why is Huw Edwards not in jail? We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the fury as the number of asylum seekers and taxpayer-funded accommodation for over a year has surged by 40% in 18 months. And Sarah Ferguson, who has been told that she no longer has the freedom of the City of York. That's the breaking news in the last few minutes from York Council. So much to discuss, so many ways to discuss it too. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call to get your voice on the air, to give me a ring between now and 10 o'clock. Lots more other ways too. Text me, 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell on Twitter. You can also send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please, 0344 499 1000. Same number for WhatsApp text messages or for phone calls too. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Well, the Prime Minister has been interviewed for the first time since Morgan McSweeney's phone call transcript. The 999 transcript has entered the public domain. He's been talking about Peter Mandelson. He was speaking to Sky News. This is what he said.
I made a mistake there, and I hate the fact I made that mistake.
I don't get why you put him back into post. Surely your instinct was, I don't want this guy near my government. Are you angry at yourself that you maybe didn't follow your instinct?
Well, on the back of that due diligence, questions were put to him, answers were given, which in my view weren't truthful. But if I sit back and answer your question, I am frustrated. Nobody has been harder on me in relation to the mistake I made there than me. And I'll tell you for why. I've spent years trying to deal with violence against women and girls. And as I look back at it now, and the mistake I made, I've been really hard on myself. In the immediate days after this all came out, I was particularly hard on myself. So, yeah, everybody else was criticising, I guess all that, but nobody was criticising me more than myself. I'm not trying to, make that a mitigation or an excuse, but I know I made a mistake.
I can see that you feel that.
I know that after nearly 20 years fighting violence against women and girls, I made a mistake there. And I hate the fact I made that mistake. And I dwell on it. I beat myself up about it. It's certainly not a mistake I'd ever repeat. But there's no criticism anybody else can level at me that will be as harsh as the criticism I've dished out for myself.
That's probably the most contrite I've ever heard the Prime Minister. Philip Kisley listening to that as Senior Fellow of the New Culture Forum. Philip, will this cut it, do you think?
Hi, first of all, hi, Peter. It's great to see you.
You too.
That was really difficult to listen to, actually. It's just so personal. It's someone essentially behind the coded language begging to be accepted and to stay in place as Prime Minister, and I think that's what all of this is about now. It's not about bluster anymore. We've gone to the next stage now, which is contrition, and slightly, I was going to say performative contrition there, but I think there was an element of real self-loathing there, for what he's done and how he's handled it, and just lurching from one disaster to another. And this latest thing about the McSweeney phone, alleged kind of that it's been stolen. It's just another thing. It's just one more catastrophe on top of so many other catastrophes that just really should not have happened. This is all chaotic. This is all, you know, it just leaves us wondering who the hell is in charge here, what's happening, and who's running the country.
It's every day though, Philip, isn't it? There's more that comes out every day, and we know from that transcript so many different bits of information, so many questions being raised as well. It seems that Steve Reid, the community secretary, at the very least got his facts wrong when he said that there was no connection. Well, there isn't a connection necessarily, but that the phone was stolen before the Mandelson stuff reared its head. I mean, that just wasn't the case. Marcus Nexter says, my goodness, the man that is Starmer has literally no shame. That's his reaction. And Karen says, good evening, Cardi P. Good evening, Karen. We can get to the bottom of Phonegate, compel Morgan and McSweeney to take a lie detector test, and have Jeremy Kyle on standby to read the results. Have a great show, says Karen at 5. I would pay to see that. That would make excellent television. Let me know what your thoughts are. 0344 499 1000. In terms of what we know about this, Keir Starmer has dismissed claims over a cover-up over Morgan McSweeney's stolen phone as far-fetched. What is your instinct on analysis of this, Philip?
Well, I don't think that's accurate, because we know, don't we, that the week before the phone was allegedly stolen,
you don't agree? You don't believe that it was actually stolen necessarily?
Well, I don't know, because the week before, apparently, there was what's called a humble address from the Conservative Party. Now, you'll know more about this through your special advisor pass, but essentially this is a request for data, isn't it?
Yeah.
From you know, communications, private communications. So Keir Starmer saying that how could we have foreseen all of this? Well, it was there. You knew. You were preparing for the potentiality of this humble address. So they did know what was going on. They did have an inkling of what was, you know, potentially in the wind. So that really throws again this excuse into complete disarray. And frankly, I just don't believe it. And reading through that transcript, it's utterly remarkable. So he has his phone stolen. He doesn't say who he is. He's the chief of staff, for God's sake. That would be the first thing I would say. Then it's vague as to where he is, because he gets the street name wrong. Now, okay, you know, the street and road, we can all do that. But then his interlocutor, for want of a better term, the person who he's talking to, starts talking about Stepney, and he doesn't correct them.
Yeah.
And so this conversation just goes off on one, which is ridiculous. And he never says. All he has to do, he says, look, I'm the chief of staff. I've lost my phone. It's a government phone. There's lots of sensitive stuff on it. We need to do something quick. Can I speak to your boss? That's what I would have said. Well, nothing there. None of that.
It's really interesting you mention that, because on The Breakfast Show, my colleague Jeremy Kyle interviewed Sarah Vine. Now, Sarah Vine is a columnist for the Mail newspaper. She's also the ex-wife of Michael Gove, who was for a long time a government minister, now editor of The Spectator, as you know, Philip, but some of our viewers and listeners might not. And her son's phone, when Michael Gove was a cabinet minister, her son's phone was stolen. She told Jeremy this.
I would like to tell you a story, which is that about 3 or 4 years ago, my son, who is Michael Gove's son, was robbed at knife point by two young gentlemen of the street. And they took his mobile phone. I rang the police. I said, you know, this is I said my name, explained who I was, and they were able to track the phone very efficiently and very quickly to a nearby council estate. We had some issues with it. We couldn't get into it because my son, had forgotten his Apple ID. But basically, if your phone is attached to your Apple ID, which pretty much all phones need to be these days, it's very easy to track. It is genuinely quite easy for the police to track it. They got the phone back.
So there you go. If you, I mean, it is almost, look, if he had gone on that line and said, I am the chief of staff to the Prime Minister, they would have taken it a lot more seriously. Now, he did tell Number 10, and in theory, they could have just wiped the phone, GCHQ or whoever, the security services could have just wiped the phone, so actually getting the actual handset back wouldn't necessarily matter. But there's so many questions that Number 10 are not answering about this, Philip.
But they didn't even follow up on it, Peter.
Yeah.
Right? So if you'd lost your phone okay, or I'd lost my phone, and there is some journalistic stuff and think tank stuff on it and sensitive stuff.
We all have, every single person.
Every single person.
Anybody who says, I have nothing to hide, my answer to them is always the same. Give me your phone and give me the code. Everybody has secrets. Everybody has personal stuff. Everybody has some stuff they've said about colleagues or bosses or whatever. Everybody has some secrets, and you've more secrets than not when you're chief of staff to the Prime Minister.
When you're chief of staff to the Prime Minister, and the least you do, or the least the government does, is follow up on it and be transparent in the process. This is all just, it's kind of happened, and there are all of these excuses, and let's move on. It's the same thing. Everything they do, nothing is simple. It's almost like just reading this. I got so engrossed in this. I've been so engrossed in the story over the last couple of days. I'll tell you why. Because I love detective fiction. I've got a great big library of it here. The plot is, it's like a Columbo plot, for God's sake, and it should be really straightforward, and it should start with, I'm in Westminster. No, you got the street. I'm not in Stepney. I'm in Westminster. Yep. I'm the chief of staff. I'm Morgan McSweeney. Put me through to your boss. This is really serious. Mm-hmm. That's all it should be. And yet here we are with this convoluted plot. It's extraordinary. I've just never known anything like it.
Yeah, I think it's a very, very good point. What should happen now, particularly on Mandelson as well, because this is very, very interesting. The theft, of course, took place just a month after Mandelson's sacking as ambassador to the US over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. The Prime Minister said the phone was stolen. It was reported to the police. There's a transcript of the call in which Morgan McSweeney gives his name, date of birth, details of the phone, and the police confirmed that it was reported. Unfortunately, there are thefts like this. It was stolen. It was reported at the time, and the police have acknowledged and confirmed that was what happened. Yet still, you say, I'm not criticising you, Philip. You're entitled to your opinion, of course, but you said, the alleged theft. Also, Carl Turner, who is a Labour MP and friend of the Prime Minister, says he doesn't believe that Morgan McSweeney's phone was stolen.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, that's why I said alleged. I wouldn't quite go that far, but it seems to be very murky. It seems to be extremely complex. And the very least thing they could have done is just follow up on it. If you don't want all of the... Look, my God, how many questions does the Prime Minister have to deal with in a day through his own stupidity? They knew. It almost feels as though either he's not being briefed at all, or he's just outright lying about this, because they knew about this humble address. They knew that the Tory party wanted data, they wanted messages, and all of a sudden Morgan McSweeney's phone just disappears, and they say, oh, well, these things happen. In London, these things happen, phones get stolen, and that's the end of it. And we're supposed to say, okay, well, we'll just leave it at that. No, we want to know what's happened to the phone. Where is it? These things are easy to check, and they are easy to track, but it's not just the data, is it? I mean, we all want to know about the data and what was on the phone, but it's just the procedure. It just feels as though this is lie after lie after lie. This just feels, again, I've said this so many times and so many times on this channel, it feels like this government is governing by the day. They are desperate.
Yeah. That meme that I've been sent so many times of Wallace and Gromit's on the train track and he's putting the track down as the train goes on. That is how they're governing at the moment.
That's the government, but they are their architects of their own disaster in a way, because it all comes from them. It all comes from stupidity, and it started at day one when they were freezing the pensioners, for God's sake, and it's just been a catastrophe. It's like the Keystone Cops,
Philip, as always, lots of common sense from you. Thank you very much indeed, Philip Kistley there, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Thanks to Simon in Durham too, who says, Keir Starmer's interview with Sky News, Beth Rigby, my word, the reputation, the absolute nonsense on stilts. He's just so utterly embarrassing. My blood actually boils listening to this man, says Simon. Incredible, but in a bad way. Elisa says, good evening, Peter. Good evening, Elisa. I've got a violin in my cupboard. Do you think I should get it out and play it for Starmer because he's been so hard on himself? Good grief. Does he honestly expect us to feel sorry for his making these so-called mistakes? Nah, not going to happen. Anne-Marie is in Lanarkshire and has some thoughts on this too. She's given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Anne-Marie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Thank you. It's about Morgan Sweeney. He had a protocol to follow for lost or stolen government devices.
That's right.
Right, yeah. So this fact that he didn't do that was wrong. But what is worse is the Prime Minister didn't know that this is what the protocol was. The Prime Minister doesn't know it, and the head of communication didn't know it. So I think the Prime Minister, as we've heard, really doesn't know how to employ people. He hasn't got any political intelligence. And I think that's what it all comes down to. That Morgan Sweeney must have known how to do this. That there was no way that it could have been lost because the government was just swung into action. And, I mean, what phone did he use to phone the
Well, he had a personal phone as well, so he rang 999 on that one. But there's so many questions here. When the Prime Minister says over Mandelson more generally, I don't know if you saw or heard that clip, Anne-Marie, what do you make of the Prime Minister? Do you have any sympathy for him?
Oh, absolutely not. I don't think the man has any moral standing whatsoever, and he has no political intelligence. That's my bottom line, and I was just concerned listening to that.
Well, thank you very much, Anne-Marie there in Lanarkshire. Appreciate you giving us a call on 0344 499 1000. We'll take loads more calls between now and 10 o'clock, so whatever you want to say and however you want to say it, do get in touch with the show. So much more to discuss on the debate desk too. That's coming up in just a second. Joe Wheeler and Lucy Beresford are our guests this evening. Stay with us.
Breaking news and Talk Breakfast. Two men, aged 47 and 45, have in the last hour been arrested in connection with the Golders Green arson attack. To me, symbolising absolutely a rise in anti-Semitism. Again, nothing from the government.
Breaking news. It's just a small matter. They have just an announcement saying transgender girls, i.e. boys, they must leave Girlguiding by this September the 6th.
We are buying from Norway because they fully exploit their share of the North Sea oil and gas fields, and we don't. Alice in Wonderland nuts.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's got in touch, including Julie in Bromley, who says, with regards to McSweeney's alleged phone theft, lots of people don't believe his phone was actually stolen. Has Starmer and all the important people changed their phone numbers for security's sake? Well, that's a good point as well. And I remember Boris Johnson being told to change his phone number as well in the past. Someone on Twitter as well has messaged quite a few people actually, but let me just read out the one that here we are. Muriel says, I just watched Starmer talking about beating himself up. I feel not an ounce of sympathy for him. He can sit and cry a river. He's the most detested Prime Minister in history, and it's not just over Mandelson's, it's everything he ever does. It is too late for poor me politics. Well, is it too late for poor me politics, or do you have sympathy with the Prime Minister? What do you think? 0344 499 1000. Let's go to the debate desk. I'm delighted that Lucy Beresford is with me, the broadcaster, and Joe Wheeler, the political commentator. A very good evening to you both.
Hello. Hello.
Lovely to see you both. Let's just have another look at this clip. This is the Prime Minister speaking to Sky News.
I made a mistake there, and I hate the fact I made that mistake.
I don't get why you put him back into post. Surely your instinct was, I don't want this guy near my government. Are you angry at yourself that you maybe didn't follow your instinct?
Well, on the back of that due diligence, questions were put to him, answers were given which in my view weren't truthful. But if I sit back and answer your question, I am nobody has been harder on me in relation to the mistake I made there than me. And I'll tell you for why. I've spent years trying to deal with violence against women and girls. And as I look back at it now and the mistake I make, I've been really hard on myself. In the immediate days after this all came out, I was particularly hard on myself. So, yeah, everybody else was criticising, I guess, all that. But nobody was criticising me more than myself. I'm not trying to, make that a mitigation or an excuse, but I know I made a mistake.
I can see that you feel that.
I know that after nearly 20 years fighting violence against women and girls, I made a mistake there. And I hate the fact I made that mistake. And I dwell on it. I beat myself up about it. It's certainly not a mistake I'd ever repeat. But there's no criticism anybody else can level at me that will be as harsh as the criticism I've dished out for myself.
I don't know about you, but I really want to find out right now what Joe Wheeler and Lucy Beresford think of this. Jason has texted from the Lake District and says, a fabulous debate desk awaits. Well, I'll be the judge of that. Joe, what do you make of what Starmer says? Are you playing, I know you play a French horn, is it? Is that right? Tenor horn, apologies. Yeah. Will you be getting out the world's smallest violin?
Very definitely so. Women and girls, I'm really sorry, mate. No, I think I've been on this programme before and said every time this man opens his mouth, the stuff that comes out is total garbage. I woke up very early this morning and felt like I was still in a dream scenario, when he's going on about this stuff and the fact that McSweeney's phone was stolen and it was this and it was that, and you're thinking, you what? Sorry? What are you talking about? It's madness.
There's so many questions to be asked about this. Lucy, what's your thoughts on the matter?
Well, there are too many questions, and the point of that interview is it's irrelevant. It's interesting that the man has a lot of contrition or self-blame, however one wants to characterise it, but that's not the point. The point is there was this really strange situation which really speaks not just to his poor judgment, but also potential duplicity within Number 10, because as your previous guest said, the government, Number 10, were seriously concerned about the fact that there might be a request for information, particularly once Peter Mandelson had been sacked. And let's be clear, he wasn't sacked within 24 hours. It was a story that went on for a few days. The leader of the opposition and other parties were very keen to press home the point that there would be information. Could we have the documentation about the approval process? Who spoke to who? So Number 10 knew that this was coming down the track, and Tim Shipman from The Spectator has written in the past couple of weeks very eloquently about the fact that they were really, really nervous. And then lo and behold, that whole kind of, Wagatha Christie replica of someone's phone mysteriously vanishing. And all I would say as someone who was, formerly a resident of Pimlico, that street, Belgrave Road, is a notorious phone hub of
theft.
I had so many neighbours whose phones were either stolen or attempted to be stolen. I mean, we're talking dozens, quite literally dozens.
What questions are still in your mind, Joe?
Well, Belgrave Street against Belgrave Road.
Yes.
Yeah, and the fact that the policeman actually said, so he went up the road and he went towards Stepney, whatever it was. Yeah, and he kind of goes, yeah. But it's like, no, different part of London, actually. Yeah, I mean, the fact that he wasn't actually identifying the place. He didn't actually say what was going on, where it exactly happened. And there were so many anomalies. The first time I heard the transcript spoken out loud, for a start, I thought it was a reenactment.
Right.
And it was designed to make us laugh. Yeah, I genuinely thought this was a joke.
It does read, the transcript reads very flat. If I'd lost my phone and if I was in the job that Morgan McSweeney used to have, I would be completely out of my mind with stress.
But then again, this is someone who can deal with very, very stressful situations in a very calm way. In theory. But at some point, in which case, why aren't you giving accurate information? So to me, the idea of, it is in Belgrave Street, which is in the east of London, and the caller
actually says a couple of times, so it's like Stepney and the park in Stepney, and Morgan McSweeney says, yeah. I mean, maybe
he's not really listening. Maybe he's worried about losing his phone. Joe.
But the thing is, if you've got a phone that is that important, and it was important, Chief of Staff, to the Prime Minister, you would say so. Yeah. You would absolutely 100% say so. You would not sit there and go, kind of lost my phone, somebody nicked it, I was on a night out. No, I'm sorry. This was a serious piece of kit with serious messages. And this whole thing about, we lost all the WhatsApp messages. No, I'm really sorry. Just recently, WhatsApp can now be on your iPad, but it's definitely on your computer, and you can access it through the iCloud any which way.
We actually spoke to Will Geddes, the security expert, about this last time. He completely agrees with you on that, and that is those are the facts. This might actually be coming into, and Number 10 should just clarify this and say, why did you not follow it up? Why did you not worry? I mean, if the phone could be wiped remotely, which these things can do, well, the handset is less important. For you or me to lose a 400 quid or whatever it is piece of kit, that's very annoying. For the government, they might just say, well, we've got tens of thousands of these phones, and actually it's not that important to lose a particular handset. But there are just so many questions that still haven't been answered.
Well, for me, another question is, we've got the transcript, fine, and maybe he was incredibly calm under pressure, which is very impressive, but that shouldn't have been the end of it. If you realise that the police are not doing anything about finding your phone, presumably there are a number of levers that you can pull within government to make sure that somebody tries to get hold of your phone. Sarah, and it's almost as if they really didn't care.
Sarah Vine actually spoke to Jeremy this morning. We looked at that clip a little bit earlier on, talking about her son. I mean, this is the son of a cabinet minister. Yeah, okay, fair enough. His phone gets stolen. That's something you don't want to happen. But at the same time, not the same as the Chief of Staff. Yet the Chief of Staff doesn't think to mention it.
I know. It's absolutely insane. The whole thing is absolutely insane. And the explanations given, the excuses given are frankly laughable.
I've read that one out. Dan in Kent, I'll come back to you, Dan, actually. Stephen in London says, if the police went fishing under Westminster Bridge, they might be surprised by the number of mobile phones located there. They might even find McSweeney's phone that's managed to float all the way from Pimlico, says Stephen. A lot of people just aren't buying this.
I think that's the problem, is that it isn't so much about the story, it's about what we make of the story. Yes. That was Freud's big mantra, that actually the reason why this story is sticking is because people don't really trust the government. And here is yet another example of them not wanting to trust the government. And that's why the mistrust is sticking. If it was a one-off and the government was behaving beautifully and performing immaculately, this story wouldn't have lasted.
But also if we had greater questions answered about it. The kind of questions we've been asking this evening, kind of questions that were thrown at the Prime Minister's official spokesman yesterday.
So I want to know is, I mean, I haven't seen the whole interview that Beth Rigby has done with Keir Starmer, and I gather that it's going to be part of a podcast. Maybe she asks him lots of other things, but this being clipped up and put out there gives the impression that this is the message that Keir Starmer wants to put out there, which is, please, can you have empathy for me and sympathy for me? But we don't. We want leaders who, it's fine, be contrite, learn your lesson, which he appears to have done. As he said, I'm never going to make this mistake again. And I just sit there thinking, I think you're going to make other mistakes going forward. But at the same time is, why is this the narrative you want? We want more conviction from our politicians.
Also from the psychotherapist part of your skills, Lucy, as well as broadcasting. Lucy's an author, a psychotherapist as well, practicing psychotherapist. I wonder, given that Starmer has been so much, I don't want to talk about anything. I've talked a little bit about his kids, talked a little bit about his father and the problems with his mother and so on. She had horrible, very, very difficult health issues. Now he's saying, look at me, I'm feeling terrible about this. He's never done that before. Why do you think he's doing it now, Lucy? How cynical do we need to be?
We need to be very cynical, because in fact it's not the first time that he's done it. You know, pretty much everybody in the country, although I gather the polling suggested that 1 in 5 people didn't know actually who Keir Starmer's father was and what he did for a living, despite them constantly saying it. But there were definitely stories and narratives, because politics is nothing if not about the stories, the narratives that we tell ourselves and each other about what's happening. And so what he wants is to come across as this human person. I'm fallible, but I've learnt from my mistakes. And the problem is, he's made so many U-turns and so many flip-flops that he's not coming across as robust. He's coming across as someone who's introspective but doesn't necessarily learn that lesson. So I feel I know quite a lot about him, actually, emotionally, and I don't need to know this bit because it's not actually getting to the heart of the matter.
Joe, let me just put to you one of the messages that's been sent in. Richard in Leicester. He's pretty blunt, but I'm going to read it out. Do you honestly believe that crap from Starmer? Snake oil salesman, oops, sorry, a barrister.
No, don't believe a word he says. But I mean, frankly, I've had that opinion for quite some time.
Yeah, this isn't changing your mind.
No, absolutely not. And, you know, whatever he's saying now, I'm really sorry, it's just bendy. You know, that the whole thing is like, bend the truth, you know, spit it out there, do whatever. I have the utmost admiration for everything that Lucy is saying as a psychologist. Yeah, you know, I don't know what the man's about. Yeah, but honestly... Yeah.
He's a prosecutor, and he basically, the reason why he's able to flip-flop is that he just literally takes the case in hand and prosecutes it to the audience, and in this case the audience is the electorate, and then when somebody else gives him a different brief, he's completely able to switch,
pick it up and
run with that,
on with
even
it,
if it is actually the opposite.
But I think the electorate are not listening. Yeah, we don't care anymore.
They have stopped listening.
You've burnt your boats. Yeah, you've made it all bad. Please just go away. Yeah, because we don't like you.
Tell me what you think about what Joe and Lucy have said. 0344 499 1000. Take a call on this after the break. And Dan, I promise you I would read out your message. He says, hi Cardi B. Hi Dan. Can I ask you a question? Being at the same age as my children, do you feel safe in 2026 Britain? I feel safe in some bits of Britain and I feel very, very unsafe in others, I must say, but it's not nearly as bad as it could be. But I know there's a lot of people, including people who, I think it's different for me as well. I'm a man, I'm a big lad, and I think it's different if you're perhaps not, if you're a woman and you're walking on your own at night. For me, it's easier, definitely, and I definitely acknowledge that. And I've never been mugged, for example. I've never been attacked, thank goodness. Hopefully, long may that continue. But I know a lot of people who feel really, really unsafe. And I was actually talking to a Jewish friend of mine today who is moving to Manchester because he says it's just in the last few months, as a Jewish person, he says he doesn't feel safe in London, and he says he would feel safer in Manchester. So that's an interesting aspect to all of that as well. Lots more to come, including on McSweeney's phone. I think we'll take a call on this with Joe and Lucy actually after the break. So stay with us here on Talk. And if you want to get your voice on the air, 0344 499 1000.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Matt in Cheshire has been in touch and has given me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Matt, you're very welcome to the programme. You're on with me, but also Joe Wheeler and Lucy Beresford on the debate desk. What would you like to say this evening?
Very good evening, Peter.
Hiya.
As you well know, I thought Keir Starmer was an abomination probably 2 years before he was even elected as PM.
That's right.
All his rhetoric about being squeaky clean, fabulous in public office, we're going to change things, how the way things work. He actually once said that Rishi Sunak should resign for not wearing a seatbelt in the back of a car.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I think he's had 12 ministers resign. He's mired in scandal. He's a liar. He's an even worse abomination than I ever imagined. So how is he escaping being allowed to act like this with no consequences?
The consequences, I suppose, are that he's very low in the opinion polls. Also, we've got the local elections coming up in May time, just in about 5 or 6 weeks' time, Matt. I mean, the electorate will have their say, won't they?
I mean, that is true, but my point being, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 savaged Boris Johnson and Sunak for much lesser things. He's basically been given a clear pathway to the end of his term before he's annihilated, and he should have been out of office months ago.
Matt, just stay where you are for a second. I'm going to take your fader down. I'm going to ask Lucy and Joe to respond to what Matt said, and then I promise I'll come back to you, Matt. Joe first, what do you make of what Matt said there?
I have no idea how or why Sadiq Khan is still there. You know, in terms of...
Do you mean Keir Starmer?
Keir Starmer, sorry. I don't know how he's still there.
Yeah.
You know, things should have been changed. You know, there should have been some measure, to try and change things, and there hasn't been.
Lucy?
I think Matt is on the right lines, but I would dispute the fact that the legacy media, and in particular channels like yours, channels like there are other channels who are really holding Keir Starmer to account, which is why this story is cutting through. And I think, in effect, we have to remember that he hasn't actually been in power for that long. He's been in power for less than 2 years. My sense is that things will change after the May elections, and that's simply because the people who would move against him have probably been spending the last 3 months, 6 months, 9 months putting their ducks in a row. We know that Angela Rayner is a very strong contender to be one of those people, and she's had this very difficult tax inquiry situation hanging over her. And we know that there was, you know, potential moves afoot with Andy Burnham moving against him by trying to become an MP, and anybody who might have fallen in behind him had to then kind of sit on their hands a little bit. So I think Labour, who don't have a very good history of regicide, if you like, that they're probably biding their time. But I think Matt's on the right lines. I just think Keir Starmer will be gone before the next general election.
I had a coffee with a Labour person yesterday who said that he thought that it would be Ed Miliband who would be the kingmaker. Ed Miliband, apparently damaged by being leader, wants to be Chancellor, wants to be seen, you know, Gordon Brown at work. He's seen what he has done. He worked for him. Seeing a Chancellor with a strong hand on the domestic agenda, and the deal will be who will allow Ed Miliband to do that, which I thought was fascinating. Joe, just a final thought before we go back to Matt.
Well, you know, ultimately you get rid of Keir Starmer, and what have you got? Angela Rayner.
Well, I think...
Well, it would just depend who Ed Miliband chose.
Yeah.
Ed Miliband is basically saying, who is going to give me, who is going to give me that role?
But ultimately, you know, are any of them actually sane and sensible enough to run the country?
Well, and who gets them through to that election? Matt, what do you make of what Joe and Lucy have said there?
I mean, it just echoes what every single normal citizen in the country thinks. And I watched PMQs yesterday, and this sort of adds to the same thing. He's getting a free ride off Lindsay Hoyle. I googled Boris Johnson. I went.
I know what you're going to say, and this is a really good point, and I've seen it too, Matt. Go ahead.
I basically googled YouTube Lindsay Hoyle and Boris Johnson, and there are endless videos of Lindsay Hoyle chastising Boris Johnson, telling him to answer questions, interrupting him, and making him do what he won't make Keir Starmer do.
That certainly did happen. I've seen some of those videos as well, and actually it's a good reminder of how Lindsay Hoyle has been harsher, I think, on Boris Johnson than he has been on Keir Starmer, and thanks for bringing that up. Actually, it's a very good point.
Do you not think, though, that actually the narrative as it now is, which is that Keir Starmer doesn't answer a question, is cutting through stronger than it would do if Lindsay Hoyle said, I think you need to answer the question. Actually, it's almost as if Lindsay Hoyle is giving him enough rope to hang himself.
Let's just hear one more clip from Keir Starmer. This is what he had talked about, the link to the theft to Mandelson. They thought some of the ideas, some would say conspiracy theories around this being far-fetched. This is what the Prime Minister said earlier.
Well, the phone was stolen. It was reported to the police. There's a transcript of the call in which Morgan McSweeney gives his name, his date of birth, the details of the phone, and the police confirm that it was reported. Unfortunately, there are thefts like this. It was stolen, it was reported at the time, and the police have acknowledged and confirmed that that is what happened. And the idea that somehow everybody could have seen that sometime in the future there would be a request for the phone is, to my mind, a little bit far-fetched.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward that there was probably going to be a request for the phone. I disagree with the Prime Minister on that point. Mark in Bungay says, "Hi Peter, I'm at the stage where I'm thinking Morgan McSweeney needs to get his eyes tested at Barnard Castle." So there we are. Very, very interesting one. More on this and all the other big stories of the day on the debate desk with Joe and Lucy in a second. Stay with us here on Talk.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is thickening, the noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Martin's been in touch and says Starmer and McSweeney are a pair of stinking liars. It's been this theme to their so-called governance. Great show, Cardi P, says Martin. Carol in North Wales says, why doesn't a national newspaper offer a reward for anyone to come forward in confidence, even if it's the culprit, to say, yes, I took the phone at such and such a place. What they did with it, if no one comes forward, doesn't answer the question, it's worth a try. Carol, I will mention that to my colleagues at The Sun. They're in this building, so very, very interesting suggestion there. Let's talk about something else just at the moment, which is the Olympics. They are announcing a ban on transgender athletes taking part in women's sport. So this is something that's been around for some time, certainly. Joe Wheeler, what do you make of it?
Well, absolutely right. I mean, how else should it be? You know, there are issues with men in women's sports. They have testosterone, which women don't. I mean, sorry, in variable amounts.
Yeah.
But basically they have more of. And it is utterly unfair for women to try and compete in sport against people who have greater amounts of testosterone. You know, that's just wrong.
The International Olympic Committee announcing the women's competitions across global sport will be ring-fenced for athletes who are biologically female. Lucy, your thoughts?
I think this is brilliant, and it's going to ripple down, not just from the Olympics, but to all sorts of international sports bodies. I mean, fundamentally, you can't change the biology, that even if you do have different hormone changes in your body, or you transition completely, in many cases that still doesn't stop you being, let's say, you know, a 6'4" man with a 6 foot wide wingspan. It's just, that is your body.
It doesn't change your
makeup.
chromosomologically.
It doesn't change your chromosomologically, but also
Try that out for a few drinks.
Well done with that.
It also just doesn't change many aspects of your physique.
Yes.
And we had some really difficult sporting encounters that we witnessed in, for example, the Olympics in 2021 in Tokyo, you know, a year later after COVID. Lots of people were really paying attention to that, partly because it hadn't happened the year before when it was meant to. And we saw signs of, you know, people who were born male, who had then transitioned, who were now transgender, competing in women's sports, in particular in, I think it was maybe it was a weightlifting event. Oh heavens, you are actually going to be so much stronger. And again, your actual frame, your physical frame, doesn't really matter what's happening hormonally. Your bone structure is different. Your physiognomy is completely different. And this is just, it's been a long time coming. I don't know why it's taken so long for them to come up with this ruling, but
Jo,
they have.
I'm interested with this. We've seen the Supreme Court ruling. We've seen, even last night, we were talking about Girlguides, for example, saying no to transgender people, children who want to be members of the Girlguides, boys essentially who identify as girls. Is the tide turning, do you think?
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, working for talkTV, and I have on occasion been driving down from Lincolnshire, where I live, you know, in the early hours of the morning, and I rock up at a service station about 3 o'clock in the morning. If I go into the main service station, it's nigh on deserted. Yeah, and you go into the ladies, right, and you expect to find yourself alone there. And on one occasion, more than one occasion, certainly I've found a bloke step out from the shadows, and I have absolutely been terrified. You know, I'm not a small person, I'm not weak, yeah, but actually to find a male in your space at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning is utterly terrifying. Now, okay, that's just one incident. You know, I'm not talking about sport there, I'm not talking about girls' changing rooms, I'm not talking about any of that. But I mean, ultimately, you know, if I'm rattled by that, yeah, then I can understand that many other people will be rattled
totally straightforward to be rattled by it as well. And it's not necessarily painting all men as rapists or bad people or whatever.
No,
that's not the point at all. It's simply your reaction to it. Let's talk about asylum seekers. More than 37,000 asylum seekers have been in taxpayer-funded accommodation for more than a year. That is a 40% surge in 18 months. There are 30,000 living in hotels. That's a rise since Labour's July 2024 election win. Just 6% of small boat arrivals have been returned in that time. Lucy?
Well, it is really quite shocking, and it is only going to fuel support for those parties that are much more blatant and upfront about their commitment to tackling the issue of immigration. And people would argue that Labour clearly haven't been able to do that even in the 2 years in which they've been in power. I think it is really difficult because they did have a commitment to move these immigrants out of asylum hotels because the idea was that it was too expensive and there were many benefits to being in a hotel that ordinary members of the public felt were very resentful that immigrants and people who were waiting to find out what their status would be would have access to the benefits of living in a sort of, one might argue, a luxurious situation. Now they're being moved to long-term residential housing. That is also housing that could be used for people who live here, who work here, who would really like to make a home here. And I think a lot of people will look at that and think, well, why are you being given that so quickly when so many of us are waiting on the ladder and we can't get through? So it's information like this is just going to really fuel that fire.
And this comes on the back of Rachel Reeves basically saying earlier in the week that, you know, taxpayers will be funding the extra money for those on benefits, yeah, because fuel costs are so high. Well, I'm really sorry, you know, with diesel nudging up towards £2 a litre. Yeah, we're all suffering with that. Yeah, and I would say that the middle band in this country, the people who actually get up early, earn the money, yeah, and pay the taxes, they are the ones hit hardest right now. And we don't need to be supporting anybody else, and certainly not migrants who've come across who seem to have wall-to-wall heating, you know, 3-4 meals a day, yeah, and live in the lap of luxury. That's not on.
It's not fair.
But where has this country lost its backbone in turning around and saying, no, this isn't for us?
Yeah. Lots in that. Tell me what you think about what Joe and Lucy have said. 0344 499 1000. I just want to take a bit of time now, actually, to talk about the Huw Edwards docudrama. This is something that I actually watched last night. We were discussing a little bit on the programme yesterday, but nobody had actually seen it by that stage who was on the programme that we were chatting to. Now, Joe's seen it, I've seen it. Lucy, I know you've read and you know a lot about it, and of course over Huw Edwards we had spoken when the sun was breaking. It's fantastic stories over that time. I just wonder, having seen it, Joe, what has anything about this changed? Do you think it's right that it was made? Do you think it was a good docudrama? What do you think?
Somebody made the analogy of, you know, this is this year's Adolescence, which irked me an awful lot, because Adolescence, whilst it was a brilliant film, but brilliant piece of drama, was pretty much non-representative.
Also fiction.
Total fiction. I mean, 100% fiction. I watched this and I thought Martin Clunes was absolutely brilliant.
Agreed. I
will just say that.
Yep.
You know, Martin, you were great. But in terms of the way it was portrayed, there was a bit of a push me, pull you. You know, he was seen accepting videos from this guy who was later convicted, you know, but his relationship with this 17-year-old didn't seem too bad. Yeah, and then it was.
But he was grooming him though, wasn't he?
Yeah,
he was treating him well,
it was
giving him money and so on.
It was strangely positioned, and I don't really know from my point of view. I mean, the only thing that I remember from it, you know, from the case itself, was the fact that some of the videos he watched were appalling.
Yeah, yeah.
And we should judge him on that.
Yes.
You know, given the fact that we judge Savile,
yes,
Gary Glitter,
totally agree,
and others the same way.
We'll return to this in a second and find out what Lucy thinks, but I just want to go to Nigel Farage now. He is launching the local election campaign in England for Reform UK. Let's hear what the leader is saying.
On local issues. But there's no denying that here in the North East, where the Labour Party have held sway in local government and in terms of the MPs they've sent to Westminster since pretty much the end of World War I, this here will be a referendum on Keir Starmer's premiership of this country. What a record it is. The man who doesn't just give away the Chagos Islands, but pays to do it. The man who tells our American allies they can't use our bases and then U-turns a few days later. The man who is proud, it seems, of the fact that it took 3 weeks and 1 day to send a single naval vessel. You can't believe it, can you? A single naval vessel to Cyprus to defend an RAF base that is British sovereign territory. Mind you, you thought that was bad. The Defence Secretary, John Healey, doesn't even know how many ships we have in the Royal Navy. This is the man who will not stand up for British values. This is the man who will not prescribe the IRGC. And think about it, there's now an active terror cell in North London that attacked the Jewish community. It is directly linked to the IRGC, and all that Starmer says is we have sympathy, our thoughts and prayers are with the Jewish community. They don't want his thoughts and prayers, they want action from a decisive leader. They'll never get it from him. This is a man who worked against British servicemen who were hounded through the courts many years after they did their duty for Queen and country. This is the most unpatriotic, the most dishonest, the most dissembling, the most undeserving Prime Minister we have had in any of our lifetimes. And on May the 7th, here in Sunderland and elsewhere, if we deliver the kind of result that I believe is possible as the Labour Party craters support to us and on the other sectarian wing to the Greens. No, not many heroin smokers here this evening. No, I'm sorry. Here in the North East, the voters in these areas can deliver a decisive blow, and a blow that would mean Starmer would be out of office by the end of May. Isn't that worth fighting for?
Nigel Farage speaking in Sunderland at the launch of Reform UK's local government campaign. We will bring you a bit more of that in a few minutes' time. Lucy Beresford, just a reaction to what Nigel Farage saying there. Great joke about heroin.
Yes, and so off the cuff, that definitely wasn't planned. I don't know whether he quite meant to use that drug. I mean, it's extraordinary. This man, Nigel Farage, has such a grip on the attention economy. He knows exactly the kind of things to say. He speaks in ordinary language. There's a reason why all Shakespeare heroes have fantastic monologues and soliloquies, because people are really drawn to people who speak well and speak brilliantly, and this is very effective.
Quick word on Farage, Joe?
That was sounding fantastic. We were watching obviously with a bit of delay, but you know, he has the ability to walk in after the event, you know, and actually say what matters.
Describe it very well. Yeah. Lucy, I promised you I'd ask you about the Huw Edwards documentary just in about 30 seconds. What did you think?
Well,
docudrama, I should say.
Yes, I haven't watched it, but I think it's very important that people understand how pernicious grooming is, and they might only get to understand it by watching it fictionalised, and therefore I think it's really important that dramas like this are produced.
Lucy Beresford, psychotherapist, broadcaster, author, and Joe Wheeler, the commentator. Lovely to have you on the debate desk. Thank you both very, very much. We'll talk to you again very, very soon. We'll go back to Nigel Farage in just a few minutes' time. We're just going to get the news now at 8 o'clock. We'll also be talking to John Rentoul in the next hour, who is the Labour supporting commentator, chief political commentator of The Independent, about what he thinks about Starmer. We'll talk more about migration and the Olympic trans row as well, and Trump versus the BBC. He's had more comments on that. So much to discuss on all of that. Also Iran in general. Colonel Simon Diggins will be joining us to bring us right up to date with what is happening there. And as always, whatever you think, whatever your view is, maybe you think I'm talking nonsense, maybe you think Lucy and Joe are talking nonsense, or you think we're talking complete sense, whatever you think, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Get your voice on the air between now and 10 o'clock. So much more to discuss between now and 10.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's go back to Sunderland and Nigel Farage, who is launching Reform UK's local government election campaign.
Kemi Badenoch says Britain's not broken. Unless you get the correct diagnosis from the doctor as to how severe the condition is, you can't begin to get the right treatment to sort out the problem. And we are bringing one very important and very powerful four-letter word to this country. Not that one. I'm going to start again. We are bringing one very important four-letter word to this country, and it is hope. Hope that we can turn things around. Hope that we can get politicians that understand what our communities really think, really feel, and really want. Hope that we can turn around economic decline, social decline, and hope that we can bring back the basic fundamental British values to understand what this country is, what it was built on, and to respect, to cherish the Judeo-Christian principles that made our country what it is. And we respect all religions. Many have come into this country. There's an element of the Jewish community from Gateshead here tonight. We've always welcomed people that come to our country, integrate with us, learn our language, have their private observance, but their kids play with our kids, and they're British first, and their religion comes second. And that is the way that it works. But the reason that 4.6 million people in other parts of England will have a vote this year, and in many cases they were denied a vote last year as well. Connivance of the Labour and Conservative parties to deny council taxpayers the right to choose those people running their councils and directly taxing them. And I thought, enough. No taxation without representation. And so we took out a proposal for a judicial review, and we were granted a High Court appearance. Now, in some ways, I was quite looking forward to it. But 48 hours before, the government buckled, and nearly 5 million people in England will have a vote on May the 7th because Reform are prepared to stand up for democracy. And I am very proud of that. Now, the reason, the cover for delaying elections was in the guise of local government reorganisation, where we're told, under devolution and localism, more power must be handed close to the people. But have a think about my own Clacton constituency. Have a think about tendering district council, right out on the end of the peninsula in Essex. Their proposal is that tendering district council be abolished, Clacton Town Hall closed down, and big decisions taken on local planning, etc., will be made a long way away in Braintree. Far from delivering what the government promised of more local government across much of England, it takes it away and moves it to the big cities. And that means that for those living in rural and seaside areas, they will be disadvantaged. But equally with Essex and Suffolk and the others, they now want to divide Essex up into 5 separate, amorphous, unitary authorities. And my position is clear. I do not believe we should break up the historic counties of England that people bear great allegiance to. And we will fight the government on local government reorganisation because no one's been consulted. No one's being asked whether they want their local councils closed, whether they want their counties split up, and whether they want a mayor imposed over the top of it. We will fight this on the basis the consultation's not happened, the arguments have not been made, and we'll fight them through judicial review, and if necessary, we'll hold local referendums to see whether that is what people want or not. May the 7th is the biggest single electoral test there'll be because, of course, I'm talking England today, but remember, the whole of Wales gets to vote, the whole of Scotland gets to vote, and remember, all 32 London boroughs get to vote on May the 7th. Sadly, the Mayor of London election doesn't happen for another couple of years, but we'll begin on May the 7th with that campaign. And indeed, for the general election, May the 7th is an essential, vital stepping stone. Whilst local government matters, it's winning national government ultimately that we have to achieve to change things and turn this country around, change attitudes and get out of the negativity of managed decline. Let's start believing in Britain and believing in ourselves. And they've literally got everything wrong, both of them. Everything wrong. Open door immigration begun by Blair. I thought he was popular in the North East. I got it wrong. You've had some other beauties up here, haven't you? What about Peter Mandelson in Hartlepool? How about that? You see, David Miliband in South Shields. They, the Labour Party, have taken you in the North East for granted for far too long. May the 7th is payback time for Labour taking you for granted, is it not? But if that wasn't bad enough, we had the Boris wave. Boris opening the doors. Over 3 million people under Boris came. Only 20% on work permits. Many of the rest will live at taxpayers' expense for the rest of their lives. And so many of those numbers will not integrate within British society. That they've all got wrong. But it's okay, because as Boris and Rishi failed to stop the boats, we've got Keir Starmer. Oh, he's going to smash the gangs. Is he hell? And one more thing about Starmer. I got up yesterday during Prime Minister's questions to make a perfectly reasonable point. I said, since Smash the Gangs, 70,000 people have crossed the English Channel, most of them undocumented young males, some of whom will pose a threat to national security in our country. 1,000, I said, have come in the last week alone. Given that this plan has failed, is there a plan B? It's quite polite for me, I thought, you know. Answer, there came none. He did what he always does. He simply reads off a script that he's been given. He's like a pigeon in Trafalgar Square, you know, I mean. And back came wholly irrelevant answers, read off a script about council tax rises in Worcestershire. And I said to Richard Tice, when he sat down, well, actually, I won't tell you what I said to Richard Tice when he sat down. I'd love to share it with you, really. A sanitised version would be sod it, I'm off, I've had enough. And so, I thought, if the Prime Minister can treat Parliament and PMQs with that level of contempt and not answer a serious question, we will treat him with contempt. And we got up and we walked out, and it was the right thing to do.
Well, we're going to go back to Nigel Farage in a second, but I want to bring in John Rentoul, the chief political commentator of The Independent. John, there's a couple of things I want to ask you about Morgan McSweeney, but Farage certainly is keeping that crowd entertained and giving them his thoughts on the politics of the day with great aplomb, and it's sort of vintage Farage, really, isn't it?
It is, and it's old style politics in a way. I'm sort of quite glad to see that kind of rousing speech making. I mean, Nigel Farage is not to my taste, but his politics is not to my taste. But he's a good speaker.
He connects with people. There's no doubt about that.
He connects with people, and he's making some good points. I mean, not all of them, but some of them are good points.
What points do you think that he's making are good, particularly in regard to Keir Starmer, because he's under a lot of pressure? Not just because of his role with the Mandelson affair. He's talked about that certainly to Sky News earlier this evening, but also Morgan McSweeney's phone more questions than answers.
Well, indeed. I thought he had a good strong go at Keir Starmer. I mean, Keir Starmer's performances recently at Prime Minister's Questions have been a disgrace. I mean, this week and last week. And last week in particular, just absolutely not answering questions.
Do you think Lindsay Hoyle should tell him to answer the questions in the way that he did with Boris Johnson?
Well, no, Lindsay Hoyle did actually intervene a couple of times to say, I'm not responsible for the answers, which is a polite way of telling him that he ought to make more of an effort to answer the questions. But no, it's not. It's none of the Speaker's business how a politician answers a question. It's up for the rest of us are entitled to our opinion, and certainly the crowd that Nigel Farage is talking to has got a pretty low opinion of Keir Starmer as a result. And, I think that's a perfectly fair criticism. And, pointing out that Keir Starmer tends to read his answers off a piece of paper with his head down is a perfectly legitimate criticism. I mean, I think walking out of the House of Commons is a bit of silly theatre. But generally,
so much of politics is about theatre. It is about how things look to some degree. I just wonder if you could tell me how you think Labour are going to do in these local elections.
Very, very badly, I think. I don't think there's any question about that. All the estimates I've seen have been that Labour are going to lose thousands of I can't remember exactly how many seats are at stake, but I mean it is going to be. There's
quite a few certainly.
It's going to be a record. Yeah. It's going to be a record breaker.
Okay.
And Reform are going to win thousands of seats, and that's going to cause all sorts of problems for Nigel Farage actually, because they won't have been able to vet all those candidates properly, and there's a lot of information around suggesting that Reform are scrabbling around to get paper candidates to put up. So there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be elected who haven't been properly vetted and checked, and so I think that's going to cause him a lot of problems. But it's going to be a humiliation for Labour, no question about it.
Okay, John, listen, thank you very much. Sorry, a slightly shorter interview because we took quite an amount of Farage there. He's off the stage now. He's introduced someone else who is speaking there, but certainly Nigel Farage was chatting for quite a long time, actually, about sort of 20 or 30 minutes there, talking about Reform UK's local government campaign, and those elections, whoever you're voting for, are on the 7th of May, Thursday the 7th of May. So that'll be really, really interesting to see what happens. I think John's absolutely right that there will be at least some, a major political upset in all of that. Farage has said the election will be a referendum on our political class. So much more to come. Stay with us here on Talk.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That's Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCounts.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beers, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
No.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, Nigel Farage has stepped away. There's another speaker at the moment who is speaking to the Reform UK conference there, or not conference, launch, I should say, of their local election campaign. There are two the slogans behind the speaker: Britain is broken, reform will fix it. That is what they're saying. They're launching their local election campaign in England. I would imagine there'll be launches in the next few days of their Scottish and Welsh campaigns as well. Farage is, I think, beside that speaker now. I think he might be coming back on stage. Yes, I think he is. Let's go back there and see what Farage says.
Derby. Yep. And the other person will be a person who I sat with the director board, Councillor Joe Quinn. I hope you're here somewhere. Oh, there he is. So thank you so much, Joe. Thank you so much, Rob.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Stay down. Well, I tell you what, well done. He is the beginning, here in the northeast, of what I hope we can turn into a tidal wave between now and the 7th of May of patriotic people prepared to do their bit, who recognise that Labour has left them behind. And far from just Aaron, I want to invite onto the stage all of the men and women that have put themselves forward to stand for us here in Sunderland. Please come onto the stage and join us. Now, as they make their way, I want to say this to the rest of you. It takes courage to put yourself up to stand for election. These men and women have done it, and they deserve your support. Look at it, there's hundreds of them. Welcome them onto the stage. Very, very good. Welcome, everybody. Very, very good.
So Nigel Farage welcoming all the candidates on the stage. There are many of them in that local area. He's speaking in Sunderland. If there's anything more significant that he says, he seems to be coming off the stage. Oh, no, he's back. Let's hear a bit more from him.
To all the rest of you in the audience, these people have made a commitment. They've joined the People's Army. They've gone public. There are many of you in this audience who've come along to see this party for the first time ever. And I want to say this to you. I believe there is a silent majority in this country that still stands up for common sense, for decency, and for British values. But the voice of that silent majority will not prevail and will not win unless those that agree with what we're trying to do are prepared to stand up and in their own way make some sacrifice themselves. And you can all be part of this People's Army. You can join us, you can give us money, you can deliver leaflets, you can speak to your friends, you can go to the bingo hall, the golf club, the pub, wherever it may be, and spread the message that if this country is going to have change, if this country is going to have hope, it is only Reform UK that will bring that. So let me ask you, as you see all these men and women who've made this incredible commitment, are you yourselves prepared to stand up and make a commitment to help us? Are you? If you're prepared to help us, stand up. Stand up if you're prepared to help us. If you're prepared to do your bit, stand up. Stand up, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I literally...
Nigel Farage there encouraging the people at that rally in Sunderland, launching their English local election campaign to join him. Many dozens of people here standing as Reform UK candidates on the stage, and the audience giving him a rapturous reception, as you would expect. So lots happening there. I would suppose that there are going to be Scottish and Welsh launches for them and for many other political parties as well. If he says anything more significant, we will of course bring it to you, although those sparklers, let's just put it on the screen if we can, just those sparklers and smoke flumes, whatever they're called, they are on stage at the moment, and certainly giving a very sort of festival style dramatic pyrotechnic aspect to Reform UK's launch now. There is ticker tape coming on the stage as well, kind of American actually, but of course the Reform UK have used that idea in many ways previously as well. So always a bit of a showman in Nigel Farage. He can certainly rouse a crowd, and that is what he's done this evening. So he's waving, and there are many of those candidates doing the same thing. Right then, let's talk about migration, because there's fury as the number of asylum seekers and taxpayer-funded accommodation for over a year has surged by 40% in 18 months. Simeon Lee is a policy analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance and is with me now. Simeon, more than 30,000 living in hotels, a rise since the election win of Labour, and just 6% of small boat arrivals have been returned in that time. What do you think?
Well, I think it's an outrage, frankly. And of course, it's not just free housing, right? It's free water, it's free heating, it's free electricity, free food, phone contract, clothes, toiletries, healthcare, dental, education, legal aid. All of this paid for by taxpayers. And as you say, that can go on for years and years. You know, even after a claim has been rejected, you know, the asylum seeker can appeal, and even if that appeal fails, they can continue to get support if they face obstacles to leaving. So, you know, this is all paid for by taxpayers who are themselves going to be struggling with bills, food costs, rising rent, and, you know, providing housing to these 30,000. And in fact, the 100,000 people who rely on asylum support is simply not sustainable economically or, in fact, politically either.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because we know that this is getting worse. Is there anything you think that Labour has done? They've announced a raft of policies over the last 6 or 7 months. Is there anything they've announced that is going to make a difference here?
Well, I think, frankly, some of the solutions that have been offered by the government are just, nonsensical, right? The latest idea, I think, is to pay people up to £40,000 to leave for a family. And I think you really have to wonder how much is the cost of supporting them that £40,000 actually represents a saving. So I think what the government really needs to do is be clear that the asylum system is about getting people out of immediate danger and it's not immigration by the back door. Because I think, a lot of the times, the way the system is set up is that people who claim asylum are able to remain for long periods of time because they exploit a lot of these appeals and the ECHR as well. And so I think a lot of times it's no longer just about keeping people safe. It's become immigration by the back door, and I think that has to end. And I think if that ends, we'll see a huge drop in the number of people who are trying to get in.
Although interestingly, Shabana Mahmood recently there appeared to be some sort of worry over whether Number 10 was actually going to back the Home Secretary when it came to saying if people lose their asylum claim, they get deported and they can only appeal from abroad. What was your thought on that political manoeuvring?
I think that the fact that we're even having these debates of somebody, it should be really clear cut that if somebody loses their appeal and they've exhausted the rights to appeal, they should be removed immediately. But one of the issues with the asylum system is the sheer number of hoops that the Home Office has to jump through, not just to remove people, but even to stop supporting them, to stop giving them these housing and all this support after their claims fail and their appeals fail as well. So I think it's a real failure of the political system that even such a simple, clear-cut issue as removing people who have been rejected for asylum is even controversial, I think.
Simeon, thank you very much indeed. That's Simeon Lee there, policy analyst at the Taxpayers Alliance. Phil in Gwent has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. Phil, you're very welcome to the programme. What do you make of this issue of migration?
Oh, good evening, Peter.
Good evening.
Yeah, just before we speak about the migration, I'd just like to say that I've been listening to Nigel Farage speaking.
Sure, what did you think?
Do you know what? I was inspired by him, Peter.
Okay.
Really, I've never actually heard Nigel with a speech before. Obviously, I've heard him a few times on telly, but I've never heard him on a long speech like I heard him tonight.
Well, the irony is that he was talking about England and the English local elections. He wasn't even talking about Wales. But you, of course, have the Welsh Assembly election, and that's going to be a nail-biter for many political parties, Phil, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's a toss-up, I think, between Reform and Plaid Cymru, but I'm just hoping, I'm a Reform voter, and I'm hoping that Reform can, because to be honest with you, I think Plaid Cymru are going to be even worse than Labour.
Well, it's interesting with Reform UK. I mean, can they come from a very low base to become perhaps even the governing party or the biggest party in Wales? Do you think that's possible, Phil?
Well, I've been speaking to a lot of people, and everybody that I've been speaking to are saying they're Reform voters. So yeah. I'm just hoping. I mean, don't forget, I'm in Gwent, but Wales is a vast area in a way.
Of course, yeah.
So I can't speak for the whole of Wales.
No, of course, and I don't expect you to, but it's always interesting to hear from people's own experience. I think Margaret in Birmingham probably agrees with you. She says, what a brilliant speech by Nigel. The man will hopefully be our next Prime Minister. Patriotic, strong, and put this country first. I'm very impressed, says Margaret. Although Barry says, I just watched Nigel, he was doing okay until the let's get everyone on the stage bit. Phil, you rang us about migration, and I want to make sure you have your say on that. So what would you like to say about migration, Phil?
Well, I'm dumbfounded, Peter, to be honest with you, because I can't understand the Prime Minister of this country just letting these criminals break into the country without containing them and assessing them and then deporting them. It baffles me. I was saying to your colleagues that my poor late father, he worked all his life till he was 77 years of age and unfortunately passed away 2 years later. But at the end of the day, he worked all his life. He didn't have a works pension. He had a state pension, and it was his pension for working his whole life was £75 a week.
Yeah.
Now, these criminals, as soon as they come into the country, they're getting housing, they're getting food.
It's just not fair, Phil, and a lot of people feel it's not about being racist, it's not about being against people coming to this country, it's not about, there are loads of people who come to this country who contribute an awful lot. It's about people who are contributing nothing, getting a lot of stuff, and they know we're a soft touch, Phil.
Well, exactly, and the thing is, I haven't got a racist bone in my body, to be honest with you, but at the end of the day, you can see the unfairness. The British taxpayer, they've been, especially working people, and Shabana Mahmood talks about, like, we're going to give them £40,000 a family of four to do. They've been rejected for asylum. And they give him, now, the average working man, to be honest, between you and me, Peter, the average working man, he probably might not even say that in his lifetime.
Well, it's a very, very interesting point, Phil, and listen, thanks for it. That's Phil in Gwent there. Alex, also from Wales, from Cardiff, says, is Lindsay Hoyle a man of enough integrity to be Speaker of the House? Santi says, Whitechapel, London is falling. MG in Staffordshire praises, as Phil did, our people behind the scenes. Matt on the phone says, your telephonist is brilliant tonight. They're great and always such helpful people. Thank you, says MG in Staffordshire. Well, thanks to them as well. It takes a village to raise a child, and it takes a whole team to make a programme, so we never forget the contribution that they make to this programme, which is getting a new name, a new sparkling new name. I was speaking to the creative people yesterday, and thank you to everybody who sent in their suggestions. And from Monday, we will be called the new name, which I will be revealing then. We're going to talk in the meantime about lots of things, although I'm off tomorrow actually. Please do tune in for Duncan Barks between 7 and 9 tomorrow. But we're going to talk about the Olympic trans row as well, the Olympics announcing the transgender ban in all women's sport, and the latest in what Donald Trump has said about the BBC. We'll talk about Iran too. Lots of people want to get on Phonegate, and Morgan McSweeney as well. I'll take as many of those as I can. Of course, stay with us here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Oh, we're back on the air. I didn't realise that. Sorry, I was looking at my phone there because there are so many people sending through various messages. So let me read out a few of them, including from Andy. He says, imagine the job of Prime Minister was vacant and advertised in the job market. What qualities would the employer, we the people, actually be looking for? Well, that's a really good point, Andy, and I'd love to hear from people between now and 10 what they think. 0344 499 1000. Bob in Surrey says, I had a phone stolen in Kingston. Police weren't interested, just the crime reference for insurance. Apple sent a new phone. We immediately got contacts, emails, messages, WhatsApp, the whole lot back. The number 10 IT team can recover. Surely he had a new phone. Northern Man says, can we assume from the McSweeney farce that every time a government phone stops working beyond repair and all the content in it is lost forever? Doesn't seem likely to me. Well, we still haven't got that answer from number 10 about whether there is, and the question was asked many, many times, whether the data exists, whether the old WhatsApps are actually there or not. Maybe they don't know. Andy says, I just got home and put the radio on. Did I really hear the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom just go, me, I, myself? I thought it might be a parody. He's totally finished. He admits it and should resign now. Well, this is the clip I'm going to show you now, actually, of Keir Starmer speaking to Sky News a little bit earlier this evening about the Mandelson affair. And he is someone who clearly has some contrition, but a lot of sympathy perhaps for himself. Maybe it will come from you, maybe it won't. Whatever you think, let me know. 0344 499 1000. This is what the Prime Minister told Sky News earlier today.
I made a mistake there, and I hate the fact I made that mistake.
I don't get why you put him back into post. Surely your instinct was, I don't want this guy near my government. Are you angry at yourself that you maybe didn't follow your instinct?
Well, on the back of that due diligence, questions were put to him, answers were given which in my view weren't truthful. But if I sit back and answer your question, I am frustrated. Nobody has been harder on me in relation to the mistake I made there than me. And I'll tell you for why. I've spent years trying to deal with violence against women and girls. And as I look back at it now and the mistake I made, I've been really hard on myself. In the immediate days after this all came out, I was particularly hard on myself. So, yeah, everybody else was criticising, I guess, all that. But nobody was criticising me more than myself. I'm not trying to, make that a mitigation or an excuse, but I know I made a mistake.
I can see that you feel that.
I know that after nearly 20 years fighting violence against women and girls, I made a mistake there. And I hate the fact I made that mistake. And I dwell on it. I beat myself up about it. It's certainly not a mistake I'd ever repeat. But there's no criticism anybody else can level at me that will be as harsh as the criticism I've dished out for myself.
Keir Starmer speaking to Sky News there. Angela says, I too am fascinated with this odd phone call regarding the phone theft, as I'm also a fan of detective novels like Philip Kisley said he was earlier on. As for a Prime Minister beating himself up and commenting about violence against women and girls, one comment that blows that sub-story apart: the grooming gangs, says Angela. Christina says, oh, get in the bin. It wasn't a mistake. He knew. Now he's desperately trying to worm out of it and cover things up. As for saying he's worked all his life to protect women and girls, when? By stopping the boats, Savile, by calling those of us who do care far right. Amy says, Starmer says he beat himself up over the appointment of Mandelson. He wouldn't have to have beaten himself up if he didn't appoint him in the first place. Muriel says, I've not an ounce of sympathy for him. He can sit and cry a river. He's the most detested Prime Minister in history, and it's not just over Mandelson, it's over everything he does. It's too late for poor me politics. And a final one from one person who says, Westminster is one of the most surveilled places on earth, and yet no footage of the assailant riding off into the sunset. Bizarre. Well, there was CCTV. It didn't actually happen in Westminster. It happened in Belgravia. Although, no, hold on. Belgravia... Is Belgravia part of Westminster? I don't know my London geography, but I think it's part of SW1, which is the wider Westminster area. So that's perhaps a good point, but the police certainly said there was no CCTV worth using anyway that was any good. Right then, I want to talk about the Olympic trans row and this idea that the Olympics body is going to announce a ban on all women's, in all women's sport of, well, they have announced it, a ban of transgender people taking part in this. The ruling will also prohibit women with differences in sexual development, and it's almost certain to filter down to individual sports. This is the International Olympic Committee announcing that women's competitions across global sport will be ring-fenced for athletes who are biologically female. Helen Joyce is the Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters. Thank you for joining me, Helen. You must be delighted at this judgment.
Completely. I mean, it's been a long time coming. This is back to the way that things were before we started to go collectively insane about the question that there are two sexes and the sexes are different physically. So back, until the 1990s, to qualify for the Women's Olympics, you had to prove that you were female. So somebody like Sharon Davies, who, swam for Britain, she did once early in her career a simple cheek swab. That means you just literally a little bit of thing inside your mouth, a few cells, they're checked, she gets a little thing saying she's female, and then never again does she have to do that, and now she's eligible to compete as a woman. That's what female Olympic athletes always wanted when they were surveyed, but they stopped doing it because they were under pressure to allow men who identify as women in. So your description of what they're doing, it's not quite accurate. You're saying that they're keeping out transgender athletes. No, they're keeping out male athletes. Male athletes who identify as women. They're not keeping out women who identify as men, who are also trans.
Sorry, I missed that completely. Right, okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
It's only about males. So that's the thing about DSDs. They're not women with DSDs. They're
Tell
male
us about
people
DSD.
with
This
DSDs.
is differences in sexual development. How does that impact this whole issue, Helen? Educate me.
Yeah, so sure, there's about 40 of these. They're all very rare. And what they do is they alter your normal sexual development physically into either male or female. But they're all either male or female. So sometimes you get somebody who's actually male, but their genitals don't look like they are when they're born and they're wrongly registered female, but they still grow up to go through male puberty. So this happened to Castor Semenya, for example. The specific condition that Castor Semenya has is one of these. So that ends up being somebody who's got male sporting advantage, but they were registered female. And those will also be excluded because they're male. So this is just a test of maleness. It's nothing to do with identity. It's just about being male. Female sports for female people. That's all.
Very interesting. And when you see, thank you for clarifying those points, by the way, and I'm always, every day in my 20 years of journalism, I'm learning things, and thank you very much indeed for educating me.
It's the great thing about journalism,
isn't it? It's brilliant. I love it. I get to speak to interesting people like you, Helen. I learn stuff. I always know more at the end of 3 hours than I did at the start when I present a programme, which is fantastic. Tell me as well about, we've had in recent days, we've had the Girlguiding ruling as well, that boys who identify as or transgender children, as they say they are, can't go into girl guides, which I think is sensible as well. We've also obviously had the Supreme Court ruling a few months ago, which seems to be some sort of catalyst for a lot of this, although I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that. Do you feel the tide is turning, Helen? Do you think you'll be able to hang up your boots soon?
Oh my God, I wish. I know I look like a spring chicken, but retirement is hoving into view, and I'd really like to think that I didn't have to keep doing this till retirement, but I do think I will. We're making headway, but every single thing is being won slowly. Like it has been obvious since the first men were allowed into women's competition in the Olympics. We had Laurel Hubbard, who was a weightlifter in not the last Olympics, the one before that. And this was a man who's in his 40s, unfit, had a very severe shoulder injury or elbow injury that would have meant that he shouldn't be able to compete. He ended up going to the Olympics for New Zealand and displaced some of the world's strongest women. And then in Paris recently, we saw two people who we think they're male with DSDs in the women's boxing. Boxing. Men can punch 2.5 times harder than women can, and women have more brittle bones and weaker necks and so on. You cannot let men punch women. And these things happened in the full glare of publicity in front of the world in the most important sporting event in the world, and nobody stopped it. And only now, about 20 years after the scandals started to become apparent, is it finally rowing back. And the same with Girl Guides. It was obvious you couldn't let boys into an organisation that's all for girls, where they go on away trips. You cannot let men who identify as women be girl guiding leaders, and yet they've been doing it for a decade before they stopped. Once madness infects people, it really takes a long time to dig it back out again.
Yeah. Helen, always good to talk to you. Thank you for that. Helen Joyce there, Director of Advocacy at Sex Matters. What do you think about this? 0344 499 1000. Leslie's been in touch and says, would Starmer have the guts to hold an election campaign in some of these working class towns? I doubt it, says Leslie. We've actually had a caller from Sunderland. Let's see if we can get her on after the break, if she picks up the phone when we ring her back. I'll certainly take some more calls, and we'll talk as well about what's going on between the BBC and Donald Trump. He's been saying some interesting things as well in regard to that. So much more to discuss, and I want to discuss it with you. You know the number, and send me a voice note as well, or give me a ring on 0344 499 1000.
some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at. I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, do these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Yeah.
Do they not love our country and everything that we've stood for?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thank you so much to everybody who has been in touch. We'll take many more of your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes between now and 10 o'clock. I just want to speak to Joan briefly. She's in Sunderland, where Nigel Farage was giving his speech a little bit earlier on. Joan, what did you make of it?
I was so pleased to hear Nigel speak. What a difference. The Labour Party up here has just taken this whole area of the North East for granted. They do very little and just treat us as I don't know what. And it made such a difference. I watched Starmer's exchange with Nigel yesterday. Once again, I'm absolutely disgusted. But one thing, I do not trust this Prime Minister and this government anymore. I do not believe a word he says. So I just hope that Nigel and Reform are successful in this area, because we need change.
Okay, Joan, listen, thank you very, very much indeed. Really appreciate your call. That's Joan in Sunderland there, where Nigel Farage was speaking. Leslie's been in touch and says it's discussing the cost of funding asylum seekers. Starmer never mentions the Channel crossings anymore. Well, he was asked about it by Farage in Parliament yesterday. Keith also says, I think Starmer not only dodges questions, he also dodges interviewers who would give him a proper grilling. I think, Peter, if you or Julia, for instance, would tear him a new one. I have interviewed the Prime Minister for this station, I think 3 times, working on another interview, but Number 10 are not playing ball just at the moment on that, but of course I'll bring you up to date with that as soon as we know what's happening. Keith in Nottingham says, oh, that's the same one. Oh yes, if he had, no disrespect to Beth Rigby, but I think sitting down with you or Julia, he would have to be wearing a hard hat. Well, there we are. Thank you for that. I want to talk now about Donald Trump and about the BBC, because he has had more comments about this. He slammed the BBC as crooked in an explosive rant over the 10 billion Panorama documentary lawsuit. Some of the comments that he has said on this have been very, very interesting. We brought a suit against them. They admitted they were guilty, he told supporters. Can you believe how crooked they are? Now it's only a question of how much do I get? They've been taught a lesson because they're crooked people. I'm not sure the BBC would necessarily recognise that version of the legalities of it. They're challenging this still in Florida. Sally Jones is a former BBC presenter herself. Sally, you're very welcome to the programme this evening. Thanks for joining me again. Where do you think this is going?
I think it's going hard and fast towards a court case. Expert lawyers are pretty sceptical about Trump's chance of winning. One or two have told me that they think it could well be settled on the steps of the court that the BBC will have to give a big payout. But as Joshua Rosenberg said recently, it won't. It won't. It'll be a big payout, but it won't be $1 billion. And Trump is looking for 7.5 billion, which is more than double what the BBC would take in its licence fee per year.
And there is form on this, isn't there, Sally? Because previously he has sued various broadcasters, such as CBS, for example. As is often the case, I'm not blaming Donald Trump. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong here necessarily. The point is, I suppose, that many people say, you know, I'll sue you for $1 million, and they get a much smaller amount, and that has been the case in a number of different court cases that he has taken.
Yes, I mean, he's a very litigious guy, and in the States they tend to be more litigious than us, and they tend to have deeper pockets. So, I mean, I think that he's pretty much cynically, but possibly, looking at this as just as he said himself, you know, case of how much I get. He's looking upon it as easy money. I mean, sadly, the BBC has played into his hands by splicing this particular edit. And the problem is that it's just coming at a time when he is playing to his own gallery. He was actually at a Republican fundraiser when he made this sort of rant about the BBC being crooked. Obviously, he's facing troubles at home because not many of them don't like the idea of an overseas war. They've, you know, the thought of Vietnam is in their minds from decades ago. So he's got to defend his position. And I think to some extent, he sees the BBC as a useful tool by which he can divert attention from quite how hot and strong he's going to go into this war and whether they're going to put boots on the ground and everything else. I think it's come at a good time for him. It's come at a very, very bad time for the BBC, with the charter renewal coming up next year with two major figures, Tim Davie, Director General, and Deborah Furness, losing
Deborah Turness. Yeah, it's interesting with the new Director General, Matt Britton, who has been appointed. I mean, I just sort of let out a bit of a sigh when I saw that he'd been on the board of The Guardian, he'd worked for The Mirror previously. I mean, there doesn't appear to have been really any effort to try to, maybe there was, but to try to find someone who might shake the place up a bit.
Obviously, he's great on tech. He's been a very, very senior Google executive over a number of years.
Although you're right. Although there is a very interesting clip going around, I don't know if you've seen it, about him on I think it was on Channel 4 News, in his role as head of Google in the UK, saying that journalists need to get used to AI, for example, and using AI. And they should, and it can be helpful, of course. But I'm not sure AI is any substitute for proper journalism.
No, I mean, I think the trouble is it's going to put thousands of us out of work, and is already doing that, as we've seen in regional newspapers. So I think the less that AI is used as a primary source, and obviously it has use in writing up stories that have already been, where all the research has been done. But I mean, if you've ever tried doing anything on AI, half of it is absolute rubbish.
Oh, it's always wrong. It's always wrong. Any time I've asked, I've used ChatGPT, I've used Claude, which is the one which Anthropic uses. I've used the Google one, and any time I ask it anything, it's always wrong.
One of my mates, who's a journalist, asked it to write her CV, and she gave it various facts. And then when it came back, she discovered, much to her amazement, that she'd won a Pulitzer Prize, which none of us can remember. You'd think that something like that would stand out. That
would be something that would stand out, certainly, yeah.
She might have remembered that.
Absolutely, so my goodness.
I'm going to get it to write my next CV. But yeah, I mean, the trouble is that Matt Britton, while a sterling chap, wonderful rower, fantastic at Google, is more of the same. He's yet another Islingtonian lefty. He's yet another who, you know, is going to be in sympathy with most of the opinion formers at the BBC. I mean, his problem is going to be to try to show the outside world, and particularly government over the charter renewal, that the BBC has actually learned from all these wretched mistakes, the Trump stuff, the Bob Villain, all the problems it's had, and the perception that most of us have that it is no longer the impartial or relatively impartial body that I went into. I was deeply, deeply proud and delighted when I became a news trainee in the late 70s. And we were always told that we had to leave our biases and our political views and our prejudices at the door with our coats.
I worked for the BBC too, not in as prestigious a role as being a news trainee. Like, those are the best of the best. So I mean, that's a big thing you should put on your CV even to this day, Sally. It's a really incredible achievement, because
along with my Pulitzer Prize.
Along with your Pulitzer Prize. But honestly, I mean, I was so jealous of those trainees, because they were the best of the best of the best, and always have been. It's interesting, though, as you say, because I was always told, I mean, when I started, I remember my boss at the BBC in Belfast saying, do not put anything on Twitter you would not broadcast, for example, which is a really, really good thing that he told me to do. So he was a great man, a great boss. And the point is that you and I worked very, very hard to keep our personal views out of it, to remain impartial. I'm not sure people at the BBC do that today. I'm not sure they have the same kind of drummed into them in the same way.
No, I think the millennial upcoming generation certainly haven't. You look at people like, say, Jeremy Paxman, who I worked with for a number of years. You look at people like Justin Webb, who unfortunately is probably towards the latter part of his career. But, I mean, absolutely rigidly impartial. I wouldn't have the first clue what either of their political views were unless they actually told me. And that's so rare. I totally agree. And you get things like the rant that Emily Maitlis did. It's not her job to lay down the law to the rest of us. She's there to report. She and the others are not there to force their views on us.
She can do it in the job she has now, but it was absolutely not her role on Newsnet. I totally agree with you, and actually that's the way I kind of feel about the civil service. There were civil servants who I worked with who got the politics, but I didn't know their political views. I worked with Paxman for a few years as well, brilliant journalist, and at that stage he's since said that he's a sort of one nation Tory, but that was in an article a few years ago. But after he left the BBC, and nobody knew, and that's the point. That's where things are supposed to be. Really, really interesting to talk to you as always, Sally. Thank you, Sally Jones, there, former BBC presenter there, and totally understanding what the BBC is meant to be, which is certainly in the news division completely impartial and not to tell you what to think. It's different on stations like this. We're an opinion station. You want to know what I think, I want to know what you think. 0344 499 1000. We're going to talk in just a second about what Donald Trump has said on Truth Social. There's a Truth Social post out there, and there'll be some breaking lines on that. Also, Colonel Simon Diggins will be in the studio reacting to that and talking about Iran, which could strike London with a ballistic missile, according to the US. It'll be very interesting to see if that is actually true, because the Iranians say it isn't. Who do you believe, essentially? And the aircraft carriers as well. Donald Trump talking about them as essentially being like a toy, or like toys compared to what we have, he said, in his latest swipe at the UK's lack of support for his war in Iran. So there's an awful lot to talk about with all of this. Simon Diggins in the studio next. And if you have any thoughts or anything you want to ask him, or think I should ask him, any questions about the war in Iran or what's happening now and where it's going, please do give me a shout. Just text it in at 7222 with your word talk in your text, or you can give me a ring, of course, or send a voice note on 0344 499 1000. So much to talk about in the next hour here on Talk.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Nigel Farage has been launching the local election campaign for Reform UK. Donald Trump has said in the last few minutes that he is going to pause the period of energy plant destruction by 10 days until Monday the 6th of April. Lots to get into with that with Simon Diggins, the Colonel Simon Diggins, military and defence analyst, in a moment. Also, Harry and Meghan announcing a trip to Australia. The Aussies are not happy about that. Also unhappy are councillors in York who voted unanimously to remove Sarah Ferguson's title of Freedom of the City of York over her relationship, well, her friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. So much to discuss in all of that. I know a lot of people want to talk about Trump, they want to talk about reparations, they want to talk about Morgan McSweeney and his phone, and Starmer as well in terms of what he's been saying. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV, follow me at Peter Cardwell, send me a WhatsApp text message or a WhatsApp voice note, keep them to less than a minute please, on the main number. You can also give me a ring on the main number. Loads to discuss and lots of opportunities to do so between now and 10 o'clock. So pick up the phone, let me know your thoughts on 0344 499 1000. Stay with us here on Talk. Nigel Farage has been in Sunderland this evening. He was speaking a bit earlier on about Reform UK's launch for their English election campaign. There'll be a further launch for the Scottish and Welsh elections too. This is what the leader of Reform UK said.
We are bringing one very important four-letter word to this country, and it is hope. Hope that we can turn things around. Hope that we can get politicians that understand what our communities really think, really feel, and really want. Hope that we can turn around economic decline, social decline, and hope that we can bring back the basic fundamental British values to understand what this country is, what it was built on, and to respect, to cherish the Judeo-Christian principles that made our country what it is.
Nigel Farage speaking there in Sunderland earlier on this evening. And in the last few minutes, the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has written on Truth Social, saying, as per Iranian government request, please let the statement serve to represent that I am pausing the period of energy plant destructions by 10 days to Monday the 6th of April 2026 at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Talks are ongoing, and despite erroneous statements to the contrary by the fake news media and others, they are going very well. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. He's written on Truth Social. Well, that just happened in the last few minutes, and Colonel Simon Diggins, the military and defence analyst, is in the studio to react to it. That is another extension of this ceasefire. Simon, your thoughts?
I think there's a big issue for Donald Trump. He knows he actually went after those targets, and the effect on the world economy would be disastrous because Iran would react, and it would react against the equivalence of targets in the Gulf states, including, for example, water salination plants, electricity plants, etc. So it'd have a disastrous effect not just on the economy there, but also on the people there. And of course, they can't deal with that, and that's something that President Trump can't defend them against either, despite the very good defences that are in place. And a full-scale attack against that, with the consequence of that, I think he can't deal with, and the economic consequences would come home to America as well. So it moves then the war from, for him, being a war of choice into basically an existential war of survival for economics and also for the countries in the neighbourhood. So it's in his interest to try and extend this. It's not at all clear what Israel thinks about that. Indeed, we've got some thinking that Netanyahu has already started to talk to his people that we must expect that America will produce some kind of ceasefire, and then what are we going to do? Are we going to continue, or are we going to match the ceasefire with it? And that's not clear. I mean,
there have already been fissures, clearly, in what the Israelis and Americans think. And that's, I suppose, you're the expert, but it's not... It happens from time to time when countries go to war together. They have different strategies, they have different ideas. Certainly when it comes to regime change, Israel, for them, that's existential, quite literally, in that view. But for Trump, it may be a very, very different view. So this move, you think, is a pragmatic one?
This is a pragmatic one, but also he has got lots of audiences to deal with. There's the audience about dealing with the war itself. There's also a domestic audience, and the effect on the economy at the moment is not necessarily badly affected, not least of which because America has its own energy supplies, so it's not dependent on the 20% of the energy that flows through the Gulf. But the economy, the world economy, is very much part of that, and the consequences in terms of the economy of this going on for longer, or if the energy structures are destroyed in the Gulf, would be consequential, significantly consequential for America. And I think it's that which is just holding him back from this.
I just want to talk a little bit about Britain before we get back to the American-Israeli and Israeli aspect of this. Today, the US President talked about aircraft carriers, and he was not happy with the British deployment of HMS Dragon and criticised them. It criticised our aircraft carriers as well. Let's have a look at what the President said.
The UK say that we'll send... This is 3 weeks ago. We'll send our aircraft carriers, which aren't the best aircraft carriers, by the way. They're toys compared to what we have. But we'll send our aircraft carrier when the war is over. I said, oh, that's wonderful. Thank you very much. Don't bother. We don't need it. And we don't need it, and we don't need them.
I mean, that's pretty brutal, isn't it? Toys, we don't need them. No thanks very much.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think nothing has yet persuaded President Trump that actually he needs allies, and so we have this kind of trash talking from.
Does he need the UK though?
He does need the UK. He needs the UK, not necessarily in its current configuration, basically weak, but it needs it because of our links to countries in the world. It's our ability to use our advocacy to bring people on side and support what he's doing. I think that's the bit he's actually missing. If you're looking at the actual sort of military ledgers and lining them all up and saying, well, we've got 2 aircraft carriers, we don't need the British one, then maybe he doesn't need it for his current operational plan. But the point of coalitions is actually you bring people with them, you bring other people to involve them, you bring their ideas to the table, you bring their contacts to the table. It's a way of spreading the influence operation, spreading the information operation about what you're trying to do. And we are now doing a little bit something towards it. So this kind of denigrating what we're doing, denigrating the support we might offer, I think is extremely unhelpful. But I don't think that lesson has quite yet got through to President Trump.
He's also slagged off NATO for doing absolutely nothing to help Iran, despite not consulting the alliance before the strikes and appearing not to heed warnings that Tehran would close the Strait of Hormuz. Clearly that was pretty obvious to people who analyse these things, like yourself, Simon, that as soon as you start doing that, Iran, which has been preparing for this for 20 years, will close the Strait of Hormuz or be as obstructive as possible in that crucial oil sorry, I've completely lost my oil moving is it the oil
export of oil.
Export of oil, yes, that's it. In the export of oil. Sorry, blonde moment there, senior moment.
No, I mean, and I think that's where he's stuck. It's unhelpful. I mean, what he also forgets is America is part of NATO. You know, it's a North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, and
many people say that it's sort of NATO is sort of America and then a few other countries attached. Like, I mean, it is the major player, really,
absolutely, but he's using it almost in the opposite thing, that NATO essentially is Europe. But he kind of used the term Europe, European Union and NATO so interchangeably and often incorrectly. I think when you're trying to surpass whatever Donald Trump is actually saying, you just have to accept that he doesn't have an exact use of those words. And so he treats NATO as an other from him,
yes,
rather than being part of...
Again, it comes back to what Farage said about Trump, saying that you've got to take him seriously, but not literally, which I wish more people would. It's a very good quote.
It's a good quote, yeah.
It is. Israel claimed that he killed the Iranian Navy commander as well. We also hear that Steve Witkoff, who spoke at the same meeting we heard in that clip a minute ago from Trump, that Steve Witkoff, who's the envoy, said that Iran had told the US they have enough uranium to make 11 nuclear bombs.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And they talked about having some 400 kilos of enriched uranium, stage enriched to 60%. Ideally, apparently, you need to have sort of 95%. I'm not an expert on it, but those are the figures that one's quoted. And people have talked between 9 and 11 nuclear bombs is the figure they could produce from that. There was some information that came out that last October, the then Ayatollah ordered them to militarise the nuclear bombs, to go small in order to actually produce them, which is really important in terms of the ballistic threat that they did, because one of the questions unclear at the moment, the ballistic missile that was fired at Diego Garcia, was it was probably a 2-stage rocket. It may have been used for satellites, but it would have had a very small payload. rather than that. So rather than sort of 1.5 tons of explosives, some of their other rockets have got, it would have had a smaller payload. A militarised nuclear weapon would fit in that very quickly.
What about this allegation, anyway, that Iran could strike London with a ballistic missile? I mean, many people telling me that's just not true.
It is potentially possible. I mean, it is potentially possible. The range is...
Maybe the Evening Standard could run a headline, 45 minutes from attack, you never know.
Yeah, well, that went well last time, didn't it?
Didn't it?
So,
Yes.
so we might avoid that one. But, I mean, I think the theoretical range issue is there. I mean, I think that the more likely targets are much closer in. But the issue we've got is we don't really have an adequate ballistic missile defence.
Yeah.
The only thing that can really do a significant amount of work, Casey, are our Type 45 destroyers. We've only got one of those operational at the moment, and the rest is in place. We have nothing like a ground-based air defence, and when Iran,
even for drones, even for anything really.
Not well. We've got stuff we've forward deployed, but actually, we shouldn't be in a position where we've got one set of this stuff.
Yes.
We moved to defending Akrotiri, and we're left nothing here. They're not the only people who are threatening us. A rogue Russian attack, while we're diverted, could come in. It just seems completely bonkers that defending the home base is not a priority for this government at the moment, and I think that seems to be one of the sort of more damning indictments of where we stand in terms of defence policy at the moment.
Tell us about this 15-point plan to end the war in Iran. We're hearing demands for a rollback of the nuclear programme, clearly access for shipping the Straits of Hormuz. What do you make of that plan? How much of it is reasonable, do you think, or achievable?
Well, I think the two questions are there.
They're different questions.
They're different questions. I mean, the first question, they're very similar to the demands that were made during the negotiations prior. I mean, during the negotiations prior, the conversation then was about no nuclear weapons programme, cut back on your ballistic missile programme, so you couldn't have weapons that could fire out to where we are, and cease your support of the various proxy groups around the place. And then there was this fourth one there, which kind of emerged, was around regime change. But the initial negotiations between the US and Iran were all about those top three. I haven't seen the detail of those 15 points. I assume though they're kind of subsets of those three major points that were there. Achievable. The challenge for the Iran, if it accepted those, is it would not be the Iranian regime it is today. Whereas again, you're back to this challenge we've got between war of choice, Trump, an existential war between Iran, or Iran's got an existential threat, and Israel sees it as an existential threat. And I think that's the difference between them. Whether the Iranians would be pragmatic about it and accept some reduction or removal of their nuclear weapon programme and some constraints on ballistic missiles in the same way that happened before is hard to tell. And they might also be willing to row back. But the challenge there is who's in charge in Iran, and it doesn't seem to be very clear. It's unlikely.
And who are they negotiating with?
Who are they negotiating with exactly? So what you mean with Iran? You've got a sort of parallel structure. You've got a sort of civilian structure. It doesn't look very different from many other countries in the world, with the president, the parliament, and all the ministries. But you have this theocratic structure run by the IRGC, and they're the ones who are calling the shots, particularly in a time of war. For them, the IRGC, if those elements were removed, the ballistic missiles, the proxy support, and the rest of it, that's their power base. That's the justification they have for the way they've got themselves dug into the economy, society of the place. And it would then turn into a kind of a conflict between the secular bit of the country and the religious bit of the country. And I think that's something which, again, they'd look at, and we're not going to contemplate.
Oh, goodness. Sorry.
Sorry.
I just hit play on a clip that was on my phone. Apologies. No, the interesting point, I suppose, as well in all of that is that the Iranians have shown time and time again in that those governmental structures, the theocratic structures, they don't care about their people.
No.
So if it comes to a bombing campaign, they will just embrace that, fight to the death.
They fight to the death, partly because they've got, they are, people are very rude about it and call them that's a death cult. But there is inside their sort of, their view, this kind of martyrdom element, and it's part of the theocratic, not all theoretic, but the Shia version of Islam has got this sort of martyrdom element which is strongly imbued. So whenever you see their reports of what's happened to leaders in the past, they all talk about they've been martyred, and this is a big thing. So actually, dying, what you and I might regard as not a great outcome from a particular day's work.
Yes, not ideal.
Not ideal. At least in terms of what they profess to believe, they can welcome. We welcome martyrdom. They talk about they kiss the sweet martyrdom. That's the ideology which they purport at least to put forward. And I suspect a large number of them actually believe it.
Simon, as always, thank you. Always worth listening to Colonel Simon Diggins, the military and defence analyst, former senior officer, of course, in the Army. Lots to discuss in all of that. What do you think? 0344 499 1000. I can also bring you, Simon, you'll remember where you were. This is JFK moment, 9/11 moment. Angela Rayner is launching a new podcast. So it's going to be called Beyond the Bubble. So Angela Rayner launching a new podcast called Beyond the Bubble. I'm sure that will be worth listening to, no doubt, because she is a very, very interesting person to listen to. Michael Gove is going to be the first guest. Well, he is actually, I think, on Breakfast with Jeremy, or maybe with Julia. Is it Monday? He's on with, is it Julia or Jeremy? With Jeremy. Michael Gove will be on, so no doubt Jeremy will be asking him on Monday all about that podcast with Angela Rayner. It's called Beyond the Bubble. Very interesting. Politicians launching these things themselves, almost as if Angela Rayner wants people to sit up and take notice of her for some reason. Can't think why that might be. Whatever you think, however you want to say it, get in touch. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us. We'll talk about Meghan in Australia next.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up! I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Tad in Cambridge has been reacting to the Starmer clip we've been playing of his interview with Sky News. Would you, Adam and Eve, at the most duplicitous man on the planet, trying to sound contrite and apologetic to Starmer's deceit? No limits. He has zero authenticity, says Tad. Robert says, typical ex-BBC employee reaction. Trump was taking on the biased broadcasting company before the Iran problems came along. He's doing us all a favour because we can't fight back when they spread lies and misinformation. Go on, you POTUS. I'm not sure who is the ex-BBC employee who is being unfair. Is it Sally Jones? Is it me? I'm not sure. Anyway, Mac says, Peter, you're looking tired tonight. Thank you. Always good to hear that. Like a DS in the Sweeney has just scooped a load of blaggers in Hammersmith. Hope one was a phone thief. Get your trousers on, sunshine. You're nicked. I'd be great on the Sweeney. I really enjoyed the Sweeney, actually. They used to do repeats on Channel 5 with John Thaw and Dennis Waterman. But no, I suppose I am a little bit tired, but I'm off tomorrow, actually. I'm taking a day off tomorrow, and I'll be back on Monday at 7 o'clock, but plenty more to discuss tonight in the next 38 minutes. We have a new caller. Mo is in North Wales, who has given me a ring for the very first time on 0344 499 1000. Mo, you're very welcome to the programme. Thanks for the call. What would you like to say?
It's regarding the mass immigration that we've got at the minute.
Yes.
First of all, can I just say that I could listen to you all day long. I don't care what you say. I just love your voice.
That's very kind, Mo. Thank you very much. You have a lovely voice too.
From the moment they leave France and are accompanied by French warships to be met in the middle of the channel by our own boats, it's a well-oiled operation.
Yeah. And there are people making a fortune, as you say, Mo, yeah. And they're incentivised really to do this. Do you think anything the government's doing is making any difference to this?
No, I think it's all deliberate. It's got to be. And the problem is, we're struggling now money-wise, and we're at the beginning of, what can I say, the immigration season on the channel. I'll call it that.
Yeah, coming into the warmer weather as well. Yeah.
And it's going to get worse. But last year, I spoke to a French lady whose sister lived near Calais, and she was a victim of crime by asylum seekers waiting to come here. And she said that a lot of the French people actually blame us because of what we have to offer them.
Interesting, yeah.
And she's got a good point, actually. Now they're told they'll get housed straight away and everything, but there's people in this country are getting very, very rich out of this.
Yeah. And you've got to ask where the deterrent is, and where the deterrent is to these people getting rich out of it too. I mean, would you judge, let's say there's a hotel operator that has hotels with asylum seekers, and are you less likely to go to that chain of hotels if they are a company that is making money from asylum seekers?
No, I wouldn't go anywhere near it.
Right.
The simple fact is, even if you agree with immigration, we've reached a point that it's totally unsustainable. Yeah. We cannot carry on like this. We are broke.
It has gone down to some degree, Mo, but what I worry about is people leaving who are actually a bit of a brain drain. So there's a lot of people going to other countries who would be, there's so many Jewish people I speak to who are moving to Israel. There are loads of young people who want to move to places like, maybe not quite at this exact moment, but want to move to places like Dubai for a better, lower taxes and things like that. So it's not just the people coming in, it's the people leaving as well that I worry about, Mo.
Yeah, that's also something else I'm interested in. I've been doing a lot of research into 1930s Germany for Jews, and a lot of what I found is actually happening right now in this country.
You're not the first person to say that to me, Mo. Mo, listen, really lovely to speak to you, and thanks for your call. Give me a ring anytime. Don't be a stranger, and great first call. Won't be the last one, I hope. MG in Staffordshire says, Sally Jones was like a breath of fresh air tonight, highlighting what journalism is authentically about. I felt exactly the same way, and thank you for that. Leslie says, why does Starmer and some media say he was right not to join the war? Starmer didn't ask him to join the war, just for the use of our air bases. And Graham says, I've just heard President Trump talking about a great Royal Navy. He was indirectly having a pop at the waste of space. Starmer, not the brilliant Royal Navy personnel, says Graham. Well, thank you for that. Let's talk about the Royals now, because Meghan and Harry they've announced a trip to Australia, with the Duchess due to appear at a women-only retreat in Sydney. You're thinking you've got to get away from it all. It's going to be, life's tough. You're going to a retreat and suddenly Meghan turns up. It wouldn't be my idea of a nice weekend away in the countryside, it must be said. Thousands of angry Aussies have signed a petition demanding the couple pay for their own security. At the same time, councillors in New York have voted unanimously to remove Sarah Ferguson's title for the freedom of the city of York over her friendship with the paedophile financier Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe we'll start with that one first, actually, with Rupert Bell, who is Talk's royal correspondent. Very good evening to you, Rupert.
Good evening, Peter.
Tell me about what's happened in York and I can imagine what the motivations are behind this. The Epstein fallout continues.
Yeah, and because obviously ex-husband, he had his freedom of the city revoked, of course, as Duke of York. And now subsequently, Sarah Ferguson also had the freedom of the city, but councillors tonight decided to revoke that privilege. Now, as one or two councillors have said, they never came there anyway. So it was a ceremonial title, but it just reflects the fallout, the feeling of the people of York that, you know, she was once the Duchess of York, and maybe they feel but that by their association with Jeffrey Epstein, they brought shame on the city, which, as you know, Peter, is one of the great cities of this country, a fantastic place to go and visit. I mean, I go there for a lot of racing, but they, the council decided enough is enough. Now, it will just be a further sort of insult, I suppose, more than anything else, to Sarah Ferguson, something else that I don't know how much she valued it. I have no idea, but it just is another example.
It's another sort of part of the humiliation the Yorks have had. And actually, it's interesting because so many people focus on Andrew, but Sarah, of course, is in those Epstein files many, many times. She brought her children to Epstein as well, and they visited him on a number of occasions. Really, it's interesting because this story as well, I know we've talked about it as well, the bizarre thing about the cloning the corgis. She's in a desperate situation and this won't help.
Well, no, it just sort of further shows that by her association and her sort of pleading nature of those emails that we saw back in the day when, you know, saying, well, I need money and then would help pay for airfares and everything, just her association with Epstein. And obviously her husbands as well, ex-husbands as well, has led to this situation. You know, they've all at times said we had very limited contact, but unfortunately for them, these emails have indicated that that wasn't entirely true, that there was a long-standing trail of emails between not only Andrew, but also Sarah Ferguson as well. Now, we don't know where she is at the moment, how she's, you know, there's talk of her trying to appear on American Traitors and all sorts of things as she tries to rehabilitate herself. The American Congress have called, people have said she should come and testify. So she's in pretty deep water at the moment. She does have amazing bounce back ability, but even for her, I think that will be sorely tested even for her, because over the years she has found a way of staging comebacks, but her links to Epstein just might be a step too far even for her to make some sort of comeback.
Tell us about other unpopular royals now. We'll talk about Meghan and Harry. And I mean, if you went on a retreat and Meghan was there, how would you react, Rupert? What would the bell reaction be?
Well, I wouldn't be paying the 3,000 Aussie dollars to go in the first place.
$3,000 does seem a bit steep. If someone paid me, $3,000, I'd perhaps consider it.
Yeah, and I may have a fundamental problem because I think it's a woman-only retreat. And last time I looked, Peter, that's not where I'm heading.
Right.
So,
Yes.
So I don't think I'm going to get the nod. But I do have friends in Australia. I've been talking, and in Sydney, who sort of move in the sort of similar circles that might be attracting the Meghan crowd, if you see what I mean. And there does seem to be a great deal of apathy. They say it's a sellout. It may be, but I don't think it's going to require that many people. But to have her, well, I think it's sort of Friday evening, Saturday, and then it's done and dusted by Sunday lunchtime. And it's not something that I don't think the Aussies are leaping out with joy. And as you mentioned in the introduction about the question of who's funding, the Sussexes have maintained that all their security will be privately funded, even though, and then they came back with saying there was a 30,000 signatures petitioning that they must not be funded by the Australian government. And I think they came back with a statement that might have said something on the lines as well as a far bigger population. So that's a very small percentage.
Oh my goodness.
But I mean, you actually, in real terms, yes, in 2018, they had a successful visit, but it was the visit that led in the end to Meghan saying what we are led to believe is she said, why aren't I being paid for this? And that led the slippery slope to her then and to Megxit finally happening, because she couldn't understand why she was having to go for all this, and there was no financial reward for it. Well, that's not the point of the royal family. The royal family is there to serve the country. The king is the head of Australia. You, as going as the spouse of one of the sons of the current king, are expected to front up and do your bit for Queen and, well, in that time when they were, it was Queen and Country, now King and Country. And unfortunately, she hadn't read the memo about that. And it was all part, even though at the time, that trip was seen as a success, but the rumblings behind offstage were not good.
Yeah. Rupert, thank you for all of that. Rupert Bell, Talks Royal correspondent. What do you make of this? Would you go on a retreat with Meghan? 0344 499 1000. Lynn in Portsmouth has been in touch about Donald Trump. You're very welcome to the programme, Lynn. What would you like to say?
Oh, hello, Peter.
Hello there.
Yes, I watched Donald Trump earlier.
Yeah.
He's speaking. I watched the whole interview.
Okay.
Well, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then he started rambling on about this building, like about he'd spent £20 million on a bill, or he could do it for 25 million. He was then holding up a pen, and I was actually thinking, I actually was sort of with him going into this war, but now the more I watch him, the more I'm thinking he's a little bit confused.
There's a number of people who sort of say that. I mean, neither of us, I don't think, Lynn, are necessarily qualified psychiatrists, but certainly he is pretty old, and a lot of people who are his age do occasionally get a bit confused, and especially if you're having the demands of running a country, most people are well into their retirement by that stage. Are you worried that perhaps his judgment isn't the best?
Well, I'm a little bit worried, not worried, really concerned, actually, that this is a man that's sort of dragging us into a war.
Yeah, let's not... Go ahead, Lynn, sorry.
And, you know, even though I don't really like Keir Starmer, I can see sort of, even though that interview I saw of him earlier today, that, I don't know, it's pretty confusing in the world. Really?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, Lynn. Listen, thanks for your call. I really appreciate that. Lots of people have got in touch about Morgan McSweeney's stolen phone, including Danny in London, who's on the line now. Danny, what do you make of this controversy? It's going on. We're now on day 2 of this.
Well, basically, London is the most surveyed city in the world. There is also something called cell site, so they can track the phone within the vicinity. So I think it's obviously a joke that apparently his phone now disappeared, but it wouldn't take long for the appropriate.
My theory is that they wiped it remotely and just thought, look, we're not going to find it again, so let's just forget about that. The handset is, to the government, not a lot of money. To you or me, it would be a lot of money to lose the handset and to buy a new handset. But actually, I mean, their story in theory could add up. Do you think it might, or are you just very sceptical, Danny? Because there's a lot of scepticism about on this.
Well, I mean, taking everything into consideration, if we were discussing a working class person in a court who apparently was in a court accused of selling drugs, and apparently his phone disappeared, a few days or within the trial, would you believe it?
Well, I'd need to...
Sorry, not you. I mean...
Yeah, well, yeah, just in general, would people believe it? Maybe we just sort of give these people maybe a bit more leeway because they are high-profile, powerful people. Do you think that's the case, maybe, Danny?
Most definitely.
Okay.
These people obviously have some... I mean, two-tier justice, which has been very... I mean, it's gone on forever, but it's very worrying that a person who commits or is involved in what they were involved in gets a lesser sentence than someone who...
I think the two-tier justice argument is a very, very concerning one, as you correctly say. Danny, and it is all over the place. Really appreciate your call there. That's Danny in London there. Just going to go to a break now, but lots more opportunity to get your voice on the air. Please do give us a ring, 0344 499 1000. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, give me a shout. And if you think I've been talking nonsense all evening, that's also fine. It's absolutely fine to disagree without being disagreeable on this programme, which we do. Lots to discuss in the next 24 minutes here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Mark Dolan is indeed back tomorrow morning, 6 till 10. Then Alex Phillips, 10 till 1. Ian Collins will be here 1 till 4. Kevin O'Sullivan on Drive as usual. And Duncan Barks is sitting in for me. I'm away just for one day, but I'll be back on Monday at 7 o'clock. Lots to discuss next week, I'm sure. Lots on Starmer. Loads of people getting in touch about Starmer on this phone and Morgan McSweeney. I'm going to do 4 voice notes now. First one from Anna.
Listening to that snivelling excuse for a human being say that nobody has worked harder to protect women and girls, the same man who is playing for time because he doesn't want an inquiry into the rape gangs. If he wants someone to be hard on him, get him on your show, Peter, and let me interview him. I promise you faithfully, there will be nothing left of him by the time I've finished. That will take me about 2 minutes. Unbelievable.
I'm not sure he's going to accept that invitation, Anna, but I would be very interested in seeing you interview him. Bridget's been in touch too with a voice note.
My God, Peter, what a performance by Starmer. I do not believe a word out of his lying mouth, in my opinion. I mean, the bloke, he should win an Oscar for that performance. He has lied and lied and lied, in my opinion, and he deserves absolutely no sympathy, beating himself up. Violence against women and girls that he's defended. Do me a favour. 2 words come to mind, Peter: rape gangs. He has a nerve to talk about violence against women and girls when they all voted against that actual inquiry, which is shocking.
Thank you, Bridget, for that. The inquiry now will happen, but so slow. Let's just remind ourselves what Starmer has been saying. What's annoyed Bridget, what's annoyed Anna in terms of what he's been saying to Sky News?
I made a mistake there, and I hate the fact I made that mistake.
I don't get why you put him back into post. Surely your instinct was, I don't want this guy near my government. Are you angry at yourself that you maybe didn't follow your instinct?
Well, on the back of that due diligence, questions were put to him. Answers were given which in my view weren't truthful, but if I sit back and answer your question, I am frustrated. Nobody has been harder on me in relation to the mistake I made there than me, and I'll tell you for why. I've spent years trying to deal with violence against women and girls, and as I look back at it now and the mistake I made, I've been really hard on myself. In the immediate days after this all came out, I was particularly hard on myself. So, yeah, everybody else was criticising, I guess, all that. But nobody was criticising me more than myself. I'm not trying to, make that a mitigation or an excuse, but I know I made a mistake.
I can see that you feel that.
I know that after nearly 20 years fighting violence against women and girls, I made a mistake there. And I hate the fact I made that mistake. And I dwell on it. I beat myself up about it. It's certainly not a mistake I'd ever repeat. But there's no criticism anybody else can level at me that will be as harsh as the criticism I've dished out for myself.
I want to speak to Brian and Whitley Bay in just a second. David in Sheffield also on the line. I'll come to you just in a minute. I just want to play two more voice notes, one from Tristan, then Pete. Let's hear Tristan now.
The man is an absolute disgrace and being a pathological liar. I can't even believe he's still in power, to be honest with you. I'm absolutely disgusted by the man. Absolutely disgusted.
Thanks, Tristan. This is what Pete thinks.
As for Keir Starmer, I'm going to intercept all those ships coming from Russia. What the hell is he going to intercept all them ships with? We haven't got a navy, not unless he thinks he's going to do it with a bloody rowing boat. This government needs to resign now. Lies, lies, scandal and lies. The government now we all despise.
Wow, thank you for that, Pete. Lots in all of that, and your voice notes will play out as many as we can. If you want to send them in the next 17 minutes before the end of the show, you can do so. 0344 499 1000. Brian in Whitley Bay has been waiting patiently. Brian, thanks for your patience. What would you like to say this evening?
Hi, Peter. A quick point. I love York. I go there several times a year. I love Drake's Fish Shop. It's fantastic. Anyway, my point. The reason why our defence system is in such a mess, the Tory government wasted billions on a railway system that we didn't even need, HS1 and HS2.
Have you seen HS2? Brian, sorry to interrupt you. Have you seen HS2 now is apparently going to go more slowly than they originally thought? So it's actually not going to be that high speed even.
Oh, absolutely, Peter. I mean, that money could have went into defence, do you agree? That money could have been put into the defence, build our ships up, build our Navy, our Air Force up and everything.
It's really interesting you mention that, Brian, because I was chatting to someone earlier on today who knows about these things. I had lunch with him, actually, and he was saying that what often happens is that you have, or what has happened over the years is, if Gordon Brown said, back in the day, if they need stuff for Iraq, if they need stuff for Afghanistan, they get it. But it's all the other bits of military equipment that haven't been updated through the years, and that's why we're in the situation we're in now, Brian.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Peter. And another thing as well, right? I'm not like Trump didn't even go to Congress to get anybody else's view. He just went straight in there. He
can't do that as president, though, Brian. Should he have gone to Congress? Should he have taken more people's opinion? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so, but I'm actually glad we're not involved because, if we got involved, there was a massive refugee problem because people can actually leave the country if there's war going on. We would have a massive situation with thousands of Iranians coming across, into Western Europe and we would have to let them in because they've come here under war situations.
Although interesting, I know exactly what you mean, Brian, although I've spoken to a load of Iranians and all they want to do is go back to Iran, to a peaceful, possibly even democratic Iran as well. Brian, lots in that, and thanks very much for your common sense contribution this evening. Another person in Staffordshire has said, waffle, 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 what more can you say? I said, yes, please, I'll have some Nutella, maybe some banana. Actually, oh, sorry, you're talking about Starmer. Right, okay. Joanna in Salisbury says, hi, Cardi P. A day off tomorrow. I'm sure with all the non-stop chaos of this government, you'll need a break and talk. I find the lies exhausting. Well, just one day, Joanna, but I am going away for a couple of days. Don't worry. Jack is fine. Jack will be looked after by his Auntie Annika for the couple of nights that I'm away. And Graham says, I've just heard, oh no, I read that out earlier from Graham. Well, let's go to David in Sheffield, who wants to talk about Morgan McSweeney's stolen phone. Tell us your thoughts, David.
Well, at the bottom of all this is the truth. And the truth is always there. You just got to be prepared to search for it. There's two people who know where that phone is. The person who lost it, the person who stole it. And for me, if the government wanted it back that bad, they should offer a reward, say £10,000, immunity, and then if he's got it, he'll fetch it back. But also, including that, if he knows where it's gone, then you're going to be able to trace it. But the point about it is, if it's been stolen, and they give them the immunity to come back.
Well, there are Labour MPs who are saying Carl Turner, the Labour MP, doesn't believe it's been stolen.
Well, yeah, but this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The truth is like X-Files. The truth is out there.
Yes.
So if
you
you
need Mulder and Scully on this one?
Chase it. But the point about it is, if the bloke comes forward, then he's telling the truth. It's been stolen. If the bloke don't come forward, and it looks very, very spurious, then it looks ridiculous. And the point about it is, if you want the truth that bad, you've got to be prepared to go the extra mile.
But the point, I mean, David,
£10,000 reward.
Everything you say is really interesting, and I'm not necessarily disagreeing with it. The points I would add to it are simply saying that they could, in theory, just have wiped the phone from the security services could have just wiped the phone because that can't be.
It's not about wiping the phone. It's about the bloke saying it was stolen. So if somebody says, "Yeah, I stole it, I'm going to fetch it back," or "I know when it's gone," then he's telling the truth. If nobody comes forward, then you can say, "Well, hang on, for £10,000, if you're willing to steal a phone, you're going to come forward for £10,000."
Interesting.
And that's nothing. That.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's interesting. Someone was saying earlier.
I'd like to say quickly.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. For whatever number of years now, people have been crossing into this country on small boats illegally. Right? Starmer's been made to look an idiot with Trump about his lacklustre, whatever it is, with this war. So to get back in his good books, he's now going to stop sanctioned boats in the Channel or wherever it is in British waters. But yet he can't stop a rubber dinghy. There's something massively wrong there. He's using us like a political football. I can't know about boats, human rights, but I'm going to stop a Russian sanctioned ship. Right? It just unbelievable. The man's unbelievable. I mean, if you can stop a ship, a tanker, and we don't know what's going to happen after that, what Russia would do, whatever, but he can't stop a boat.
Well, listen, it's a really good point. David, you make some excellent points. Please do give me a ring in the future. Again, David, really, really interesting to talk to you, and good points there. Melanie is in Staffordshire and has some thoughts on McSweeney. Melanie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, just very quickly, I mean, we've had a few mixed this evening. You know, we've got McSweeney, we've got McSwingle. Let's go for McDonald's. I mean, perhaps that's where Starmer needs to go.
You're making me hungry.
About basic skills and interviewing staff and vetting staff. Because I think it's absolutely appalling that he's just assumed that somebody's previous reputation, like Mandelson's, is enough to go on without re-interviewing and checking them out and looking at criminal records.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, Melanie, it's all really good points, but we don't know because he won't answer the question. He was asked six times by Cameron Badenoch, did you speak to Peter Mandelson before you made him US Ambassador, yes or no? And he just didn't answer the questions.
I think that just shows his lack of skills, really, social skills, automatically going on the defence, not even addressing people correctly in the House of Commons. It's always he, it's always she.
Yeah, rather than the right honourable lady and so on, yeah,
it's never done correctly. To me, that's just a basic lack of professionalism. I think it's lack of experience, and I think if you're not skilled enough to sort of respond to people and knowledgeable enough, what are you going to do? You're going to go on the attack. You're going to go on the defence.
Very
I think it's a classic strategy. That's what we think, anyway.
Really, really interesting thoughts, Melanie. Give me a ring anytime.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot for giving me the chance to come on your programme.
Well, any time, Melanie. Just pick up the phone anytime. I'll put you on any night of the week because you speak such common sense. Thank you to Melanie. Also, Angela has been in touch from all the way from Penzance, saying listening to Starmer is like listening to Andrew Mountbatten Windsor all over again. You get an apology, but we can all tell it doesn't actually mean anything, says Angela. Margaret in Yorkshire says Starmer is more annoyed that he has been rumbled and found out by his decisions. Catherine says he's a typical lawyer. They say never trust a lawyer. Lots to discuss still, and we still have more time for calls. If you want to give me a ring for the last 10 minutes of the programme, 0344 499 1000. We're also going to have a quick chat with Ash about what's coming up on their programme. Him and Andre, of course, will be here between 10 and 1, so stay with us here on Talk.
Current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Jason from the Lake District has been in touch about a number of aspects. He says Brian from Whitley Bay, who we heard from there about 10 minutes ago, absolutely bang on, says Jason. Helen as well, Helen Joyce, well educated in the area, she's fantastic. He also says the BBC should have gone with someone like Andrew Neil. It's crying out for his ilk if it's going to turn the tanker around. Sadly, his age is against him. I think there's plenty of gas in the tank with Andrew Neil, let me tell you. It'll take a while before he goes anywhere. Jason also says if it sounds like a doc, walks like a doc and looks like a doc, Starmer must resign. How on earth can any rational perspective be made to say, anyone with any rational perspective say otherwise? He's failed on absolutely everything apart from supporting the feckless and lazy. Jason also says today is the due date for their first grandchild, his first grandchild, so I wish you very, very well with that. I'm bursting with excitement. I can't wait to hold him. Well, that is absolutely wonderful, Jason, and maybe you would send us a nice photograph on Twitter or something like that. Another person says, what make was McSweeney's burner phone? Another more scepticism on all of that. We've also been reflecting earlier on in the evening about Nigel Farage, and he has been launching Reform UK's local election campaign. Let's have a quick look at that.
We are bringing one very important 4-letter word to this country, and it is hope. Hope that we can turn things around. Hope that we can get politicians that understand what our communities really think, really feel, and really want. Hope that we can turn around economic decline, social decline, and hope that we can bring back the basic fundamental British values to understand what this country is, what it was built on, and to respect, to cherish the Judeo-Christian principles that made our country what it is.
That is in Sunderland. That's where Farage was, the launch of their local election campaign. Also the news this evening that Angela Rayner is launching a brand new podcast called Beyond the Bubble. Apparently there's just one episode so far confirmed with her interviewing Michael Gove, who was Housing Secretary, and then she was Housing Secretary, of course, later. Thank you to the person, and a few people actually have sent lovely messages about the fact I'm having a day off tomorrow, which is very nice. One person says, enjoy your day off tomorrow. Thank you for everything you do for us and for your normal grounded guests too. Let's go to another normal grounded guest. His name is Ash.
Yeah, man. I've done about the grounded. Where are you going tomorrow? What's going on?
Just going for a little break. Just heading off to the countryside for a little break for a couple of days.
Which countryside?
Back on Monday.
Nice.
I don't actually know. I think it's Hampshire, but I'm not
You
entirely
don't know
sure.
where you're going.
Well,
That's the best. Are they blindfolding you and just open you're in
I'm
the
going on a
countryside?
retreat with Megan. No, someone else booked it.
It's
so,
all the same, isn't it? Grass, sheep. It doesn't really matter where it is, man.
What's coming up in your programme, Ash?
Well, we've got Aria Whitman, who's from the podcast The Western Spirit. I think he's in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, but he's getting, bombed every night. So he's going to phone us up, and I don't know if he's in the shelter tonight, and just let us know what's going on, on the street and the ground in Tel Aviv. We're talking about Defence Secretary Paul Hegseth saying that they've got missiles that can reach here now, but it can't be that difficult. If you can go 2,000 miles, just put a bit more petrol in and it'll go 3,000. You know what I mean?
Well, the interesting one with Diego Garcia as well is that it was meant to get there, but it was actually a smaller load than you would expect, and it wasn't that.
There was a couple
ballistic.
of them and they got knocked out, but I mean, of course they could reach here, and we've only got about 2 ships, haven't we?
Well, and we've deployed them. They're elsewhere as well. Yeah,
man. We got Curtis Hinton on. We also got Pete Barnes on. He's always good, isn't he? With his, and we're talking about Matt Britton.
Yes, the new Director General of the BBC.
He's just a Google man.
Well, he also worked for the Guardian as well on the Mirror.
Well, that's even worse. So this is all about they're trying to get digital, aren't they? That's why they've got him on.
Yeah.
And he's saying all the normal.
Well, he probably want to replace reporters with AI.
Well, yeah, they'd probably do a better job. They'd definitely be more balanced, wouldn't they? And
maybe not.
They'll have less hallucinations.
Well,
especially Jeremy Barron.
I know you're not a fan of him.
He gets his ideas from.
Well,
so me and we've been down there. Have you ever done Down the Local with Dave?
I haven't done Down the Local because they film it on when I'm broadcasting. So I've said I'll do it, but I haven't actually done it. Have you done it?
Well, I've done it a couple of times, and we did one today was my second one, and it was at the Freemasons Hall.
Right.
Very full of mystery. It's an amazing building, man. Lavish, marble, they're good builders, aren't they?
Yeah.
They've got the best builders. Yeah, it was amazing. So that'll be coming out whenever it is.
Very cool.
Junior doctors to strike for 6